All right, let's give it a shot. See where we're at here. You guys are going to have to excuse me while I'm doing this check 1 2 stuff, making sure we're getting all our levels correct.
I call this hearing to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized
All right,
to
let's give it
declare
a
recess
shot.
at any time.
See where we're at here.
I
You guys
want
are going to have to
thank
excuse me
everyone,
while I'm doing this
especially
check
our
1
witness
2
for joining
stuff,
us.
making sure we're getting all our levels correct.
I call this hearing to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized
All right,
to
let's give it
declare
a shot.
recess
Okay, guys
at
and
any
girls, this is
time.
where we're at here. I hope that everybody,
I
you guys
want
are going to have to
thank
excuse me
everyone,
while I'm doing this
especially
check
our
1
witness
2
for joining
stuff,
us.
making sure we're getting all our levels correct. Keeps on repeating.
I call this hearing to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized
All right,
to
let's give
declare
it a shot.
recess
Okay, guys
at
and
any.
girls, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, here we go. We are going to go into this, guys. This is for you. This is for you. So the small businesses are going to be heard. We've heard enough of the senators, enough of the congressmen. Now it's your turn to be heard. And hopefully this will do this. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's do it. We're going to go into this. You ready, guys? Hope everybody is doing all right. This is for you. So the small businesses are going to be heard. You hear me? Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Enough of the congressmen. Now it's your turn to be heard. So and hopefully this will do this. And that's what this meeting is for in particularly. It's so that you can voice your opinions on what is going on in the SBA. Hopefully this audio video works out today. I'm hearing echoing. I'm not sure if you are. Now it's your turn to be heard. We'll try to get it straight. I hope everybody's doing well. Hey, Brenda, it's good to see you, hon. Samir, that's what this meeting is
Awesome.
for. Good to see you too. Thank you, Ice Oliver. Good to see you, brother.
Opinions on what is
Michael
going
Jessop.
on in
Good.
the SBA.
I'm not echoing. Am I echoing, guys?
Works out today.
I'm hearing echoing. I'm not sure if you are.
Now it's your turn to be
But we'll try to get it straight. I hope everybody's doing well. Hey, Brenda, it's good to see you, hon. Samir,
that's what this meeting is
awesome.
for.
Okay, so here we go. Let's go into this meeting today with the SBA. It went over quite a few things with Guzman and the lawsuits that are being taken place, the Eidl grants and loans that have not been put out yet. It's a very long and frustrating meeting to get through. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and I'm going to pause as I see your questions and concerns go up. I got to get this sunlight out of my face. Hold on one second, okay? I'm going to get this sunlight out of my face.
I call this hearing to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. I want to thank everyone, especially our witness, for joining us today. Let me begin by saying that standing House and committee rules and practice will continue to apply during remote proceedings.
There, now I
All
can see.
members are reminded that they are expected to adhere to these standing rules, including decorum, when they are participating in any remote event. With that said, the technology we are utilizing today
Am I still
requires
echoing?
us to make some small modifications to ensure that the members can fully participate in these proceedings. House regulations require members to be visible through a video connection throughout the proceeding, so please keep your cameras on. If you have to participate in another proceeding, please exit and log back in later. In the event a member encounters
Am I still
technical
echoing?
issues that prevent them from being recognized for their questioning, I will move to the next available member of the same party.
Okay.
And I will recognize that member at the next appropriate time slot, provided they have returned to the proceeding. Should a member's time be interrupted by technical issues, I will recognize that member at the next appropriate spot for the remainder of their time once their issues have been resolved. In the event a witness loses connectivity during testimony or questioning, I will preserve their time as staff address the technical issue. I may need to recess the proceedings to provide time for the witness to reconnect. And finally, remember to remain muted until you are recognized to minimize background noise. In accordance with the rules, staff had been advised to mute participants only in the event there is inadvertent background noise. Should a member wish to be recognized, they must unmute themselves and seek recognition at the appropriate time. Before we get started, let me take a minute to welcome our newest member, Troy Carter from the 2nd District of Louisiana. Mr. Carter is a dedicated public servant, having enjoyed a distinguished career at nearly every level of state and local government. He previously served in both the Louisiana House and Senate, and also as New Orleans City Councilman. Mr. Carter has a track record as a successful entrepreneur. We think this will serve him well and our committee, and I look forward to working with him. Welcome, Mr. Carter. Administrator Guzman, welcome to the Small Business Committee, and thank you for being here today. First and foremost, I want to commend you for the tremendous work you have done for our nation's small businesses. And it is important to point out that you took over the helm of SBA in the midst of an unprecedented crisis for our nation's small firms. In 2020, COVID-19 closed more businesses than any other year on record and left countless other entrepreneurs clinging for their survival. I appreciate the fact that you're here today in compliance with statute. Unfortunately, Treasury Secretary Yellen has declined to appear before us in complete disregard for the law.
Okay, let's start there. Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury, was supposed to be there today. That's breaking the law. She was supposed to, by law, Yellen was supposed to be here for this meeting for these people to ask her the questions. She is the Secretary of the State of the United States. She is totally, nobody understands why she didn't show up. Strike one for Yellen.
Which requires her to do so. Without her at the table, this committee cannot properly fulfill our oversight responsibilities to American taxpayers nor the nation's entrepreneurial community. While she and her team may believe the role in PPP and other small business COVID relief programs is dwindling as we move toward economic growth and economic rebirth, they are sorely mistaken. In light of the feedback we have received about the MOU between Treasury and SBA, it is incumbent upon Secretary Yellen to fulfill her statutory requirement and appear before this committee. I look forward to working with Chair Cardin and Ranking Members Luke Meyer and Senator Paul to find a mutually.
Okay, to get this nipped in the bud by the small business owners, I want to know out there right now, I'm going to ask the questions. What do small business owners think about the Secretary of Treasury not showing up to this appointed meeting today? What does that say to you, and how do you feel about Yellen not showing up to this meeting today? Should she be fired? We'll move forward.
Agreed upon date for Secretary Yellen to appear before our committee with Administrator Guzman in the near future. Congress has passed 8 small business relief bills, allocating more than $1 trillion to small firms during their darkest hour. The federal government's efforts to save small business were extraordinary, but distributing this aid was a monumental task for SBA. The $1 trillion plus in federal funding represented more than 10 times SBA's annual budget. As a result, the agency administered more aid during the COVID crisis than it had for all the other disasters combined during its 67-year history. To that end, it is important to recognize SBA employees for their tireless work in getting these programs up and running. The agency's efforts made an undeniable impact on entrepreneurs' lives and helped millions of small businesses and nonprofits avoid permanent closure. And yet, the massive scale of PPP and other relief programs, coupled with a quick rollout, overwhelmed the agency at times and resulted in a number of problems. And my hope for today is that we will not blame, but instead work constructively in a bipartisan manner to assess the current programs and partner with SBA to make improvements where needed. One of my top priorities has been increasing equity in relief programs. Early on, evidence emerged showing the smallest of firms weren't getting the same access as their larger counterparts with ties to big banks. That is why I fought hard for PPP modifications last year. Additionally, under the Biden administration, SBA has taken deliberate action to deliver relief to underserved communities. These efforts have proven to be effective in reaching those that were left behind in the initial round of PPP. With the current round of PPP, SBA has approved more than 6 million loans for a total of nearly $266 billion with an average loan size of approximately $44,000. This is a substantial improvement compared to an average loan size of $199,951 during the first round of PPP in 2020. I also look forward to hearing more about the targeted Eidl program, Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and the Shorter Venue Operating Grant Program. 3 new programs that are awarding direct grants to small firms hit hard by the pandemic. Another issue that has plagued both PPP and Eidl has been fraud and abuse. Unfortunately, to get loans out the door, the previous administration lowered guardrails and fostered an environment ripe with fraud and abuse. GAO added PPP and Eidl to its annual high-risk list in March of this year, meaning there is a need for better management and oversight. I am pleased that under your leadership, the agency has confronted these issues head-on. It is vital that the SBA combats fraud and protects taxpayers' dollars. For over a year, small businesses have persevered through a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. But today, thanks to our collective efforts, small firms have hope. Across the country, customers are returning and business conditions are normalizing thanks to vaccines and public health measures. Though the pandemic may be receding, we must continue to work as a committee to see small businesses to the end of the crisis and help facilitate a strong recovery. I now yield to the ranking member for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for calling this important hearing. While I'm glad we'll be having a conversation with Small Business Administrator Guzman, I am deeply disappointed and concerned that Secretary Yellen is not with us today. As you spoke, she's required to be here by law, and I won't state the law, but it's supposed to be at least 120 days after enactment of the law. She's supposed to be here at least twice a year. This is not only, this is very troubling. It's a complete violation of the law. I appreciate your comments, Madam Chair, and I'd like to work with you to make sure that the law is followed and that we schedule a time in the future for Secretary Yellen. To that end, I have a letter here that's been signed by all the members of the Republicans on the committee, as well as a list of events and the schedules of Ms. Yellen over the last 2 months that I'd like to enter to the record. I have a couple of things.
Without objection.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And you know, the list of activities I have no problem with. I think that she's doing her job, probably doing it well. But there is a couple of events on here that are actually political activities. And again, I don't have a problem with her doing that, except that it shows that she's prioritizing political activities over her job, which is by law supposed to be in front of us. That can't happen.
I want to go over that real quick. Who in here thinks that Guzman and Yellen should be out of the law as far as politics, but who thinks that they are actually jumping so far into the politics of it all that it's not allowing them to do their job? I believe that they should be out of the politics of it all, and that's what he's saying. Is he's saying they should be out of the politics and into their jobs to get us funded. Look at Yellen; she's not even there. So let us know your thoughts on that, and we'll keep it going.
The Paycheck Protection Program was established in a bipartisan manner to be administered by the SBA and the Department of Treasury. With reservation, Secretary Mnuchin testified before this committee last Congress. His testimony was critical as it helped members on both sides of the aisle explore questions from their constituents and assisted members with next steps for the COVID relief programs. It is a clear sign that this administration's Treasury Department, one of the biggest in the federal government, is ignoring America's small businesses. Simply put, if the Treasury Secretary and Biden administration truly cared about the nation's small businesses and their employees, Secretary Yellen will be testifying today. Despite the Treasury Secretary not being with us, we have much to discuss. COVID-19 was devastating to our nation's small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups. Without precedent, state and local shutdown orders forced small businesses to either operate under restricted capacity numbers or close their doors to the public altogether. Responding to the backbreaking impact on small businesses, Congress and the Trump administration quickly focused on assisting small business workers. According to SBA's Office of Advocacy, small business employees represented approximately half the nation's workforce. Importantly, one program that was front and center for struggling small business was the Paycheck Protection Program, which private sector lenders delivered to small businesses many loans and all the dollars in those loans. PPP offered potentially forgivable loans in the dollars that were used and on payroll and a few other eligible expenses, and millions of small businesses took advantage of the program, and it is now concluding. The next phase of the program will focus strictly on the PPP forgiveness. Beyond PPP, Congress also activated the Eidl program. But unfortunately, this program, which is administered as a direct loan program through SBA, has been riddled with fraud. From SBA Inspector General report highlighting $78 billion in fraudulent activity to a report released 3 weeks ago, where the Inspector General found over 800,000 Eidl applications that were flagged for identity theft concerns. It is clear the program is not safeguarding American taxpayer dollars. Any amount of fraud is absolutely unacceptable. However, this level of fraud shows the SBA is not suited to administer any direct lending program. On top of the fraud issues, the Eidl program is slow to reach small businesses in time of need. Historically, the SBA turn time to small businesses has always been at a snail's pace. In stark contrast, the PPP, unlike the Eidl program, was set up to capitalize on the efficiencies of private sector lenders, not the SBA. In addition to the turn time, the PPP also protected taxpayer dollars more effectively compared to Eidl due to lenders having responsibility to know their customers and know how to underwrite loans. As we continue to explore the SBA programs, we must look to the private sector to find efficiencies and innovations. The SBA's ability to make direct loans to small businesses must be studied. In addition to making...
Okay, I'm going to stop him right there again, because what I want to ask right now is what he is saying, what Lukemeyer is saying is that the PPP handled their loans much better than the Eidl. So would you all be willing to take the Eidl $240 billion, say, and throw it over to PPP and let PPP dish out the rest? Or do we keep it going along with the Eidl loan program, which has dealt so much fraud? I think that's one of the questions that he's trying to push across here. So as far as you all out there, what would you think if they took the $240 billion and gave it to PPP so that the private lenders could dish it out with less fraud? Or do you think it needs to stay into Eidl and you go for your 3 times more of a loan than you got in the first round? Let us know your thoughts on that.
Loans, the SBA has also inefficiently operated the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program for struggling venues, theaters, and other cultural entities. The night before the program launched, the SBA's Inspector General warned of a serious concerns about the oversight controls in place. Then a few hours after the opening the portal, the SBA had to take it offline to troubleshoot. The program eventually relaunched, but has yet to disperse any funds to struggling venues, although this morning, Conveniently this morning, they announced that they are going to disperse some money very shortly. Amazing how that works. While the SBA has been ignoring the venues program, it has been championing capitalize on the efficiencies of private sector lenders, not the SBA. In addition to the turn time, the PPP also protected taxpayer dollars more effectively compared to Eidl due to lenders having responsibility to know their customers and know how to underwrite loans. As we continue to explore the SBA programs, we must look to the private sector to find efficiencies and innovations. The SBA's ability to make direct loans to small businesses must be studied. In addition to making loans, the SBA has also inefficiently operated the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program for struggling venues, theaters, and other cultural entities. The night before the program launched, the SBA's Inspector General warned of a series of concerns, or serious concerns about the oversight controls in place. Then a few hours after the opening the portal, the SBA had to take it offline to troubleshoot. The program eventually relaunched, but has yet to disperse any funds to struggling venues, although this morning,
He's saying there that the shuttered venue that they put up a month ago still hasn't dispersed any money. Any. For those restaurants that are out there struggling, or that shuttered venues. Is that horrible? This is not acceptable.
conveniently this morning, they announced that they are going to disperse some money very shortly. Amazing how that works. While the SBA has been ignoring the venues program, it has been championed by the SBA's Restaurant Administration's Restaurant Vitalization Fund program. The SBA has celebrated the priority period, which unfairly picks winners and losers. This administration even highlighted that the program is reaching potentially undocumented individuals and those with an unknown immigration status over hardworking citizens of the United States. And they're even being.
So what he's saying there is that they're giving the money, they're giving Eidl loans and PPP money to undocumented immigrants right now, and they're not giving it to you. Problem. What do you think about that, guys?
Sued for this discriminatory practice today. Overall, it seems each day brings another complication for the SBA. I know Republican members have many of the same concerns that I do. However, the SBA's track record for answering our questions has been underwhelming and at times non-existent. Thus far, my colleagues and I have sent numerous letters to Administrator Guzman and received limited responses. I would like to insert every letter that has failed to receive a response in today's record, hearing record, Madam Chair.
Wake up,
I'd like
Nydia.
to insert some letters.
Nydia.
No objection.
Thank you,
So,
Madam Chair. I'm hopeful this conversation will produce results because at the end of the day, small businesses drive our nation's economy. We must provide an environment for small businesses to operate independently as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, this administration is threatening the small business recovery with increased taxes and more regulatory burdens. We cannot allow these changes to occur. The health of our nation will depend on the health of small businesses. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Lukemeyer. The gentleman yields back. I would like to take a moment to explain how this hearing will proceed. You will have 5 minutes to provide a statement, and each committee member will have 5 minutes for questions. Please ensure that your microphone is on when you begin speaking and that you return to mute when finished. I would like to introduce the Honorable Isabella Casillas Guzman, who was sworn in as the 27th Administrator of the SBA. She previously served as Director of the California Office of Small Business Advocate in the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. From 2014 to 2017, Administrator Guzman served in leadership at the SBA as the agency's Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor, where she oversaw policy and new program implementation. She earned a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. Welcome, Administrator Guzman. Ms. Guzman, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairwoman Velasquez. Thank you so much, and Ranking Member Lukemeyer, as well as members of the committee. I really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to be here to discuss SBA's programs in response to the COVID pandemic. When I appeared before you as a nominee, I've been meeting with you all over the past couple of months since I've been in office. I've mentioned how this unprecedented crisis for our nation.
One bad day in the month of March, I was wearing a suit, my collars were starched, customers missing, folks were hissing, I was feeling down, bills are piling up.
Need presented by this moment. And in my first 2.5 months as SBA administrator, I can tell you that my motivation to deliver for our entrepreneurs has only intensified. And I have to share how proud I am of my incredible mission-driven team at the SBA, who, despite having had to scale at a high intensity the past year plus, remain incredibly committed to our nation's entrepreneurs. They have been working around the clock to deliver all the components of the American Rescue Plan's crucial relief programs to ensure our small businesses can survive this disaster and get on the path to recovery, growth, and resilience. We're making significant progress, particularly in our efforts to reach small businesses owned by women and people of color who, because of long-standing barriers to capital, markets, and networks, suffered disproportionately from this pandemic, and by many accounts, weren't able to access relief. We're seeing the impact. The latest economic reports show that small business jobs have begun to rebound and proprietors' income levels have begun to recover. And we're hearing from the small businesses we serve that both our traditional and our new relief programs have created vital lifelines. Earlier this month, we successfully launched the $28.6 billion Restaurant Revitalization Fund. As of Monday, when the application portal closed, we've received more than 372,000 applications, representing over $76 billion in requested funds. And more than half of those applications came from food and beverage businesses owned by women, veterans, and people of color, who, as directed by Congress, received priority access to the program. And we're reaching the smallest of the small food and beverage businesses, with 1/3 of the total funds set aside just for them, including a specific set-aside I created for businesses with revenues of $50,000 and under. I'm proud of how we've rolled out this program in under 2 months while focusing on my key priorities of meeting small businesses where they are and integrating a customer-first, technology-driven, and equitable approach. We also launched the $16.2 billion Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. As of May 25th, the SVOG program has received more than 13,000 applications for approximately $11 billion in requested funds. We started awarding our SVOG funds this week, and we hope to continue to help our nation's venues hold on until they can bring back the performances and experiences that are the lifeblood of the American culture. Through our Paycheck Protection Program and Economic Injury Disaster Loan Programs, we've now gone beyond $1 trillion in relief. And so far in 2021, 95% of PPP loans have gone to small businesses with fewer than 20 employees. Our priority across all of our relief programs is to get funds into the hands of small businesses swiftly, efficiently, and equitably. At the same time, we're also committed to maintaining a high level of oversight to minimize fraud and abuse while elevating transparency and open communication. We have implemented controls and oversight to better achieve that balance and reverse some of the previous fraud challenges that initially plagued the PPP and Eidl programs. I was pleased to hear both GAO's Bill Scheer and SBA's Inspector General Mike Ware say in a recent House committee hearing that transparency at the SBA has improved under my watch and that our relationship is off to a very good start. There's a lot of work to do, but we're working diligently to ensure this relief gets into the hands of the businesses for whom it was intended. Beyond our COVID relief programs, we're also looking to the future and our nation's economic recovery with an eye toward equity. Small businesses are starting to reopen, but they're still reeling with major revenue losses, and most expect recovery to take more than 6 months. This means that we will continue to see the need for capital, which is why the SBA is exploring all options to open up capital access, including direct lending. Additionally, we know that the best thing we can do for our small businesses is to help our nation recover from COVID and get our marketplaces and main streets back to normal. With more than 61% of adult Americans who have taken at least one shot of the COVID vaccine, we're making progress. The SBA is doing its part by getting the word out about the American Rescue Plan tax credit available to small businesses that provide paid leave to employees receiving or recovering from a COVID vaccination. There is so much more work to do. As the voice for America's small businesses and innovative startups, I will be leveraging every tool at my disposal to bring businesses back, create jobs, and build an equitable economy that works for everyone. I look forward to partnering with you all to give entrepreneurs the tools they need to start, sustain, and grow into the future. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Lukemire, and members of the committee for the opportunity to appear before you today.
Thank you, Ms. Guzman. I will begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Guzman, Administrator, we will hear a lot today about fraud, which has been a concern since the relief programs opened. Since you took over as Administrator on March 17, how has the agency worked to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse in its pandemic response programs, both old and new, like restaurants and shorter venues?
The administration has made it a priority to implement all of our relief programs with integrity and transparency.
I'm going to stop her right there. If you notice, Ms. Velasquez just asked her a staged question. I appreciate the fact that they're coming out and giving us explanations to the SBA, but they staged this question. If you look at the question she just asked and Guzman's answer, her eyes are like reading off of this teleprompter or whatever she's reading from. I don't like it when they stage the questions, but I just want them to know that we know that you're staging questions for Guzman to answer, because we can see her eyes moving back and forth as she's reading. Not that there's anything totally wrong with it, but like somebody had on our thread here just said, it's a smokescreen. It's part of a smokescreen when you're just not being honest and deliberate with your questions and answers. But I'll let it go. Sorry. Move forward.
SBA has been implementing a holistic approach to fraud mitigation to ensure consistency across all of those programs. It is a high priority of mine as well. As I said, I want to get these funds into the hands of those businesses it was intended to serve. So my staff is aware that I take this seriously, and cooperation with the GAO and IG has been of high importance for us to make sure that we're implementing best practices and doing the most that we can to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. I've directed my team to look at best-in-class practices, adopting technology where it works to ensure that we're aligned with best practices that the IG and GAO have recommended, and we have been implementing controls and evaluating it.
Thank you. So you are open to provide any information required by the IG, GAO, providing data that they must access in order to make an assessment as to
I agree with just Plano. If anybody wants to scream, just go ahead and do it now. Just go ahead. Oh, no, not that. Just go ahead and scream. Get it out, guys. I agree with Plano. Just scream. It's okay.
If the programs are working as they were intended by law.
That's correct.
So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund has a 21-day priority period for grants to women and veteran-owned businesses and socially or economically disadvantaged firms. How is this program helping to ensure the equitable distribution of pandemic relief?
We've worked really hard to do extensive outreach across the board for restaurants, reaching our smallest businesses, as well as those priority groups across the board. We've reached over 100,000 people with multiple events. And so that reflects in the large number of applicants that we've seen come through the system. We believe that outreach, that connection to resources is most critical to make sure that businesses of all types can access this program. In addition, though, we tried to streamline, put ourselves in the customer's shoes, and adopt technology to make sure that this process was as simple as possible for them to access. And we've seen those results come to play because it's on average about 20 minutes to fill out the application. There's technology prompts throughout to help businesses, and they've gotten the assistance with great customer service in over 17 languages. So we've done a lot.
Yes, I have some other question and too many to ask, so please. In the first round of the PPP, large companies took advantage of the emergency relief, squeezing out the little neighborhood restaurants and mom and pop shops. Could you discuss how the set asides for community lenders and small businesses in LMI areas, ensure that the capital was made available to the smallest of the small businesses and truly underserved businesses.
You know, based on the performance that we've seen with these community financial institutions, our CDFIs and CDCs and minority depository institutions, we know that they oftentimes reach those businesses that have been underserved. And so we've, those priorities have enabled businesses to access the program. And as I shared, that we've seen in 2021 that the PPP has been accessed more by LMI communities as well as rural and those underserved marketplaces.
Thank you. The pandemic has exposed the systemic inequalities facing women and minority-owned small businesses, which have been particularly hard hit this past year. What steps are you taking to address these inequalities and make sure all small businesses have access to SBA resources?
I have instructed my teams to really position themselves in the customer's mindset. I mean, understanding what their financials look like, what their situations look. Businesses have been transformed, especially during COVID. Their situations are quite different. So we're evaluating all our programs to make sure that they can serve all constituencies equitably, and everything's on the table. In addition, we're focusing on the outreach, and the Community Navigators pilot program will be just another tool that we can use to make sure that our businesses are connected to the resources that they need.
Thank you. And I really want to commend you for raising the limit on the Eidl loan program to $500,000 as one of your first actions as administrator. So my time has expired, and now I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Ruckemeyer, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Mr. Guzman. As we all know, and we discussed here, COVID hit our country and caused all sorts of unprecedented things within our economy to happen, shut down the economy, and as a result, lots and lots of small businesses were in the dire straits. Some of them going out of business, some of them, temporarily postponing their ability to have their businesses open, and we put in place the PPP program and the Eidl program. But they had dramatically different outcomes. The PPP program, which was run by and administered by the financial institutions, did a really, really good job. When you look at over $800 billion going out the door, and the minimal amount of fraud and theft, identity theft that went on, it's in a 0.010%, which by any measurement, that's very successful. The Eidl program, to contrast that, was over $200 billion, and roughly a third, according to the SBA's Inspector General, in my opening remarks, has either been pointed out that there's potential fraud, if not documented fraud, identity theft in particular with that program. Over 800,000 applications have been flagged for identity theft. There's a difference in the way these two programs are administered. One is through the private sector, which has laws and rules with regards to knowing your customers. They have processes, procedures in place. They know how to administer loans, make loans. And then the SBA was totally in charge of the Eidl program. Do you believe that or do you acknowledge that the private sector lenders, from the community banks to the CDFIs and MDIs, efficiently delivered funding to small business during COVID, Administrator Guzman?
Our partners have done a great job, as they have across our historic programs, in implementing the PPP. Yes, I would agree with that. And then in terms of the Eidl specifically, note that there were some challenges in the way the program was designed, which is why I've informed my staff that we need to look at fraud controls from inception of design and implementation. So for example, for Eidl, by statute, we were not allowed to collect tax returns, which is one of the biggest controls that we can use as a tool. So, without some of those controls in place in the beginning, of course, that has now shifted. And we have adopted controls in place to prevent fraud in order to really meet the needs of these small businesses and make sure it gets into the hands of the folks.
Do you think incorporating some private sector lenders in the middle of that would be helpful?
I know that across the board, our private sector lenders are great partners across the board. But In terms of the interest in providing disaster assistance historically, they have not been interested. It's been too costly for them to adopt this type of relief, and that's why the government has stepped in to provide.
Well, maybe we can work together, Administrator, to iron out that little problem there, in that a third of the money could be susceptible to fraud is totally unacceptable. Something has got to change structurally within what's going on in the Eidl program. And it looks to me, if you just compare PPP to the Eidl program, the template's there for how to fix this. But I want to work with you on that. We've got a huge problem. Together, we can come up with some solutions. Thank you.
I look forward to that.
The PPP program, I just want to talk about it for a little bit with regards to the forgiveness aspect of it. We just got a letter back from Mr. Kelly within your office there, and he was telling us that there's still roughly a little over 36,000 PPP loan forgiveness applications that have now exceeded the 90-day window of requirement within which the SBA should begin to or should administer this forgiveness program. What's your solution on that? How can we get this fixed?
Mm-hmm. For context, the SBA has processed over 60% of the 2020 PPP loans for forgiveness. That 36,000 represents about 1% of the total, and we're committed to trying to work through those issues with the lenders. The Office of Capital Access obviously has been collaborating with the lenders to try to figure out how we can help their review process. On average, it takes about 6 days for the SBA to process forgiveness once the lender has signed off. And so we are working in partnership with them to solve this issue.
Is there an ability to contract that out so we could speed that up? Because the next round of forgiveness is just around the corner here with this last tranche of PPP money. Is there a way we can speed that up, make sure that this gets done in a more timely fashion? Would contracting it out be helpful?
I'm not sure that contracting out would be helpful, but we have been working with the lender groups. I've been meeting with them myself as well as Patrick Kelly to come up with solutions to try to streamline this system. Obviously, 150K and under have a simplified process. Those 150 to $2 million loan sizes are obviously what we're looking at to try to streamline as the demand is going to increase as we shift towards forgiveness. So I look forward to partnering with you on that.
Very good, because I know we've appropriated lots and lots of money over the last 2 or 3 bills here to be able to do this. So we either need to be hiring more people or we need to be contracting this out so this can get done in the timely fashion with which it's supposed to. So we'll look forward to working with you on that, Administrator Guzman. With regards to communication, we started out, I think, on the right foot. It took about a week to get our first call set up, but we finally got that done, and we were able to respond pretty quickly to my first initial letter. But yesterday, or I guess last week, we finally got a letter in response to something we did 2 months ago. So it's, and I know my colleagues are very concerned. You're going to get a lot of questions on this today about communication.
Mr. Lukemeyer,
Yes,
the time has expired.
Okay.
And you have it.
We will send this question in written form to the administrator. We thank you, Madam Chair, and yield back.
Thank you. Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. Now we recognize the gentle lady, Ms. Davis from Kansas, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you for holding this hearing. I also want to say thank you to Administrator Guzman for joining us today. We know that even with the rising numbers of vaccines and vaccinations getting into people's arms, that even with the decreasing numbers of infections, that many small businesses are still feeling the impacts of this pandemic. And there are still a lot of financial and logistical hurdles that face small businesses throughout the economic recovery and reentry. And I know that Ms. Guzman and our committee and all my colleagues remain committed to supporting our small business community through all of these challenges. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on some of the comments that the ranking member shared. In February, my office raised concerns with the SBA about the fraud and abuse and the PPP and Eidl programs. And, in part, it's because a number of Johnson County residents, which is in the 3rd District in Kansas, have been the victims of identity theft and fraud that took place in the Eidl program. And I've urged the SBA to focus on these cases, and it sounds like you are, because they're not only a misuse of taxpayer funds, but also directly and personally impacting the constituents in my community. And Ms. Guzman, or Administrator Guzman, I should say, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the work that the SBA is doing to eradicate the fraud, and waste and abuse from the Eidl program. And then if you could also talk a bit about the ways that the SBA is working with the victims of identity theft and fraud that's taken place through either Eidl or PPP to ensure that those victims are not held personally liable and that they're made whole.
Yes, thank you for that. I mean, as I had shared, that we are implementing controls and evaluating on an ongoing basis. It's an iterative process to stay best in class, to prevent fraud, and that happens at the program design phase and enterprise-wide. So we're really committed to this issue. We have obviously put in a lot of specific frameworks in place on both, across our capital access programs, including PPP and the restaurants program, and then within our Office of Disaster Assistance on.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here, guys. What Sharice Davids just asked question, and Son of Obedience just asked me to speak. Robert Dunham said the same thing. How many breaches of data occurred? Now, here's what they're trying to do. This is a smokescreen here to get off of the subject. This is just a softball question for Guzman to ask, and Sharice Davids to have said something in the meeting. This was a ridiculous question. There are hardly any data breaches. And that's what the news covers, are these like 1 out of 10,000 people in this queue have been breached by data. It's just a ridiculous question. We can move forward to this. We all want to get our money. We want to talk about the Eidl grants we're not getting. We want to talk about the PPP loans that seem to have stopped, but they're still going. So go ahead and keep filling out your PPP loans, guys. Keep applications going on for that. We want to talk about the money that has not been given to us in the Eidl program that should have been given to us. We want to talk about why everybody, no matter where your location at, no matter what color your skin is, isn't getting these loans. That question right there is such a softball question that we don't deserve that. Sharice, you should be ashamed of yourself. Do your homework about what's going on. Watch Speak and See channel and understand what's going on, or Jason McElhone and understand what's going on, because a lot of these politicians just don't know. But I got that out. I wanted to speak as you asked me to do, and we'll move forward now.
The shuttered venues, as well as the Eidl program and targeted Eidl. We are really committed to making sure these funds get into the hands of those businesses that was intended, and we are seeing enormous drops now that we've implemented those controls. However, in February, we did implement a process to help businesses through identity theft issues, as clearly that was a huge problem in the beginning of these programs. And so we want to make sure that businesses are supported through that process. There's now a support system and a process in place for them to reach out to the SBA and get assistance in fighting that specific identity theft case. And we actually have hundreds of investigators on place, on support with the IG to help prevent, help investigate, and actually pursue any cases of fraud, as we take all cases very seriously.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And if necessary, our office, of course, will reach out if we're hearing things that they're continue to be of concern, so that you're aware of it and are able to address it. I appreciate that. And then the second thing I wanted to, you mentioned a little bit about about restaurants. Restaurants, bars, the shuttered venues have obviously been hit especially hard during this time, which is why Congress, why we targeted resources toward those small businesses. I know the demand for those funds are oversubscribed. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the expansion of eligibility, or allowing for additional funds to continue these programs. In your view, does that make sense? And is it something that we should be working toward?
we've seen a huge demand, as I said, over $76 billion in requests on the restaurant program. On the shuttered venues program, it's over 11 billion, but it looks like I know applications are still coming in. We're still accepting applications, but it looks like there might be enough funding for that in addition for them to get the supplemental. But on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, we're happy to provide any data and support Congress as they make that decision to replenish that fund and support restaurants through this time. We are still seeing obviously a huge demand, and this assistance is helping them keep their doors open.
Thank you, Administrator. And I appreciate you being here and your testimony today. And Madam Chair, I yield back.
The gentle lady yields back. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Hagedorn, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez. And I appreciate you bringing up the fact that Ms. Yellen was not here today. And, thank you for doing that on behalf of the committee. Administrator Guzman, as a member on the Republican side of the aisle, I can assure you that every colleague that.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here, guys. I want you to listen closely to this gentleman. He's talking about this is where it starts getting a little bit juicy.
That is on the committee that I've served with in both last Congress and this, has tried to, in a bipartisan way, pass bills that are going to help all of the American people, particularly our small businesses in this instance, get from one side of the coronavirus to the other. And we did that in a number of ways with a bunch of different programs, but we wanted to treat everyone equally. And just last Thursday, I, along with my fellow Republicans, sent you a letter talking about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And we don't really believe that everyone is being treated equally when it comes to that particular program. For whatever reason, the Biden administration, the Democrats, put together a priority list, which prioritizes a lot of different restaurant owners, and they're all great. We want to help them all. But for whatever reason, the priority list, the people who weren't on that list weren't allowed to be funded at this time because you closed the whole portal the very day that the priority list was set to end sending in applications. For the record, can you explain to us the characteristics of the people that are bar and restaurant owners who were not on the priority list?
Sure, of course. And
he's asking for a record of the people who are not on the priority list. Basically, he's saying white men aren't there. You're excluding them.
The initial outreach that SBA did was extensive with the National Restaurant Association as well as the Independent Restaurant Coalition to reach all of the businesses. We informed everyone that this was first come, first serve, and that everyone should apply, despite what the processing priority was going to be for those first 21 days. And I think that's reflected in the 372,000 applications. Only 214,000 of those are for the underserved or priority groups, which includes, of course, veterans, women, and socially and economically.
Who isn't on the priority list? That was my question.
Well, the priority list includes women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged individuals.
Who is not on the priority list?
Those individuals that don't fall into those categories if they're not socially or economically disadvantaged. And they're all outlined.
I'll reclaim that time. It would be helpful if we just be honest about it. So anyway, the portal closes. The only people at that point who are going to be funded are people on the priority list. 100,000 or more bar and restaurant owners across the country that aren't part of the priority at this point won't be funded. They happen to be, let's just be honest with it, white men that own bars and restaurants. Those are the folks. How is that not discriminatory or even outright racist?
Well, white men who either have partners who fall into those categories, it's not 100% ownership. It's,
Does anybody care to comment on that? Or do you want to stay away from that area? It sounds to me personally like he's right. Why? I mean, it shouldn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, what race you are. Why are they getting involved in this particular area? I feel like this is really hurting America because it's stepping back. When you look at an application to do a loan and you start basing it on the color of his skin, no matter what color, any kind of discrimination is discrimination. And you start looking at the color of skin, it's just going way backwards here, guys. It's just not acceptable.
51%. In addition, veterans, are able to access this program. And what I would say is that the priority, while the application closed, we have all those applications, and we're beginning to process all applications non-priority as well. There were also small business set-asides, and so those, some of those small business set-asides remain, and so those will also, businesses that fall into those categories will have an opportunity to be funded.
But those are the only people that weren't part of the priority. So it makes sense to me that that would be discrimination in any sense. The other thing I'd add is that how can we be sure that illegal aliens aren't receiving this money before U.S. citizens?
We know that restaurants are job creators, clearly, and immigrant entrepreneurs just as much so. They're all job creators. They're all tax paying. You have to be based in the U.S. tax paying entity in order to access this program, and that's the threshold that we've followed.
So there's no assurance of that. Look, I think it's bad enough that when the federal government picks winners and losers, that's socialist policies, and to do so based on race, and even putting illegal aliens ahead of U.S. taxpayers, to me, doesn't make any sense. We should all be treated equally. We should all have the same opportunity. And right now, it seems like there's a big segment of our population who happen to be bar and restaurant owners who are not being treated equally. And I hope we would reject that type of racial politics. I yield back.
I want to go another step on that. I want to thank Gifty Sine for saying she's a restaurant owner as well, and she's against what they're saying here. I believe it's racist as well, because I think it degrades African Americans. It degrades them. It makes them think that all African Americans are poor. I have I've got relatives that are African American. I have African American in my blood, but it's trying to say that we're all poor. That African Americans and Asians are all poor. They're not. African Americans have picked themselves up from the gutter, and they should be encouraged to do this. Just because you're middle class or middle upper class, I know a lot of African Americans who got a lot more money than I do because they have worked harder than I have, and we got to encourage that. I'm just kind of upset that they're saying African Americans are not middle class. I believe African Americans nowadays we're seeing middle, upper, and just moving hoops and ladders. We need to stop that and just base things on go to the paperwork, man. Let's start looking at the resumes and quit looking at the color. Anyway, I'll let him keep going. I'm sorry to jump in there, but I want to know what you guys think. That's why we're here. We're going to have these comments and chats to go back with later that we can scroll down and maybe send our attorneys to and say, hey, S. Oliver said this, or hey, Gifty Sine said this, or Son of Obedience said this. And these are business owners that have an opinion that we're trying to decipher on and to use with Brenda Nixon and Dunham and everybody's. We need you all joining in on this. So thank you all for your comments, and we'll continue going on with this SBA meeting that we're having right now.
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Phillips, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Ms. Guzman. All of us are hearing about the current programs, PPP, EIDL, not meeting the needs of certain heavily impacted small business industries, fitness and wellness being a good example. Has the SBA considered recommendations to this committee on some alternative solutions, perhaps to buoy these small businesses?
We do. We hope to continue to serve on PPP until it's over these smallest of the small businesses, and including those highly impacted industries referenced. And so we do believe that there's opportunity to access that program as it was opened up more for sole proprietors and independent contractors to change the way that we assess the dollar amounts of that program. So I do believe that's still an opportunity. In addition, of course, we have the targeted Eidl advance program that we have been pushing out. There are specific eligibility requirements across that program, but in early June, we will be opening up that program more broadly to all those in the eligible categories outside of those who previously applied for Eidl advance.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Did you everybody hear that? They're going to be opening up the Eidl grant program more broadly. You know what I'm thinking that means is, you know, that map where those purple, you only get the purple. Maybe they're going to expand the purple more into the yellow. That's what it means, opening more broadly, because right now that map that just shows you, if you're in the purple area, you get it. If you're in the yellow, you don't. It's more of I call it the prejudice map, because it kind of is. It degrades you on where you live, and instead of who you are and what you went through. That's cool. The Eidl grant's going to be coming out more for those of you out there who have not got the Eidl grant that we're all going for. Somebody say, hey, I want my 10K. This is part of that. That's awesome.
And so we think that's another opportunity to support these underserved businesses, impacted industries that still need relief.
Okay, and Ms. Guzman, any potential to expand the SBOG program to include fitness operators?
The statute on the SBOG was very specific in many ways, and very prescriptive about the eligibility requirements. And SBA is following that guidance from Congress. At this time, there's no way to expand that.
Okay, I just want to make sure my advocacy is clear relative to certain industries that really have struggled disproportionately. My next question is about the restaurant revitalization program and
those in the eligible categories.
Okay, here I have a question, because of what she just said. She said we're going to broaden the Eidl grant, but then she goes off and says, well, we can't do nothing about it because it's in Congress's law. So Congress is going to have to go in and do something about it. So we might have to hear about this through the Senate or through Congress. We're going to re-listen to this, because this is very important to all of us in our Eidl grant. This is a key piece of information.
Outside of those who previously applied for Eidl Advance. And so we think that's another opportunity to support these underserved businesses, impacted industries that still need relief.
okay, and Ms. Guzman, any potential to expand the SBOG program to include fitness operators?
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize.
We have to go back on that one. I want to go over that Eidl one more time. This is very important information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Ms. Guzman. All of us are hearing about the current programs, PPP, EIDL, not meeting the needs of certain heavily impacted small business industries, fitness and wellness being a good example. Has the SBA considered recommendations to this committee on some alternative solutions, perhaps to buoy these small businesses?
We do. We hope to continue to serve on PPP until it's over these smallest of the small businesses, and including those highly impacted industries referenced. And so we do believe that there's opportunity to access that program as it was opened up more for sole proprietors and independent contractors to change the way that we assess the dollar amounts of that program. So I do believe that's still an opportunity. In addition, of course, we have the targeted Eidl Advance program that we have been pushing out. There are specific eligibility requirements across that program, but in early June, we will be opening up that program more broadly to all those in the eligible categories outside of those who previously applied for Eidl Advance. And so we think that's another opportunity to support these underserved businesses, impacted industries.
Okay, I heard that. She said she is opening up the Eidl grants outside to those who previously applied. So that means if you've previously applied, the Eidl grant is now going outside to those who have not previously applied. I get it now. And that's not good news. That's not great news, because the way she had just worded it is it's going outside the previous to those who applied. So hopefully they bring us back in to those who have not got the Eidl grant, because if they don't, there's going to be hell to pay.
Industries that still need relief.
Okay, and Ms. Guzman, any potential to expand the SBOG program to include fitness operators?
The statute on the SBOG was very specific in many ways, and very prescriptive about the eligibility requirements. And SBA is following that guidance from Congress. At this time, there's no way to expand that.
Okay, I just want to make sure my advocacy is clear relative to certain industries that really have struggle disproportionately. My next question is about the restaurant revitalization program and as it relates to closed locations and determining eligibility. Despite the SBA indicating that closed business locations are ineligible, which is, I think, on Form 3172, Item 3, some are being shut out from receiving the funding to keep the businesses afloat because the forms require them to count closed locations amongst their operating entities. So will the SBA provide any guidance and updates in its forms that reflect that restaurant locations not doing business as of March 13th, 2020, and those permanently closed won't prevent a group from qualifying for the RRF?
I will go back with my RRF team to explore that issue and get back to you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Lastly, when the committee heard from the GAO and SBA Inspector General, we learned that while millions of America's small businesses have benefited from the programs, SBA was repeatedly warned that the speed in which the programs were implemented left the agency with limited safeguards to identify and respond to risks such as improper payments and clearly fraud. I'm concerned about the potential for fraud in the restaurant program as well, as some of my colleagues have already indicated. With the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Regulations, the two of us have introduced legislation to require the SBA to report to Congress on the plan, their plan, your plan, and the steps that have been taken to ensure that the resources within the program reach the businesses in need. Can you share with us, the entire committee, what steps, if any, that you've taken so far relative to oversight?
On the Restaurant Revitalization Fund specifically, we have implemented industry best practices as well as strong controls, fraud controls in place to ensure that there's limited fraud in the program. We've reviewed our full plan with the IG and GAO and feel comfortable with the current process that we're following to reduce that and minimize that risk wherever possible. And it's an iterative process, and we continue to look at upgrades as we move forward.
Okay, well, if anything unifies Democrats and Republicans in this case, it surely is relative to prevention of fraud and ensured dollars are being used appropriately, effectively, and efficiently. So we thank you for your attention.
Bye, Cheryl. Thanks for showing up.
I yield back.
Good seeing you.
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Administrator Guzman, I appreciate you being here today. I am extremely frustrated with Secretary of Treasurer Yellen not following the law. As the chairwoman eloquently stated, it's her responsibility to follow the law and be here. And I equate my frustrations with both the chairwoman and ranking member Lutmeyer for the comments against Yellen for not showing up. It is just unconscionable that she's not here, blatantly not following the law, which says, I think, a lot about the individual. Administrator Guzman, how many small businesses are organized as a subchapter C corporation?
I don't have those exact numbers. It's not as it represents more of the employers than small businesses as a whole.
Can you give us a guess? Can you give us a guess?
I can't give you a guess. I apologize. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. Of course, I've looked at it, because obviously it's not, there's some tax benefits we've looked at before, and small businesses just do not veer towards that category.
Would you say hundreds of thousands?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay. Has the Biden administration proposed increasing the corporate tax rate, thus increasing taxes on these 100,000 small businesses that are organized as a subchapter C corporation?
I know that small businesses across the board, have average revenues that are very small. I mean, if you look at the Office of Advocacy's report, those revenues are under $50,000.
Administrator Guzman, because my time is limited, the question was: has the Biden administration proposed increasing the corporate tax rate on these subchapter C corporations?
Those should not. We are focused on trying to remove some of those loopholes for the larger entities. We do not intend to affect the small entities.
Is that a yes or a no?
That's, from my understanding, we are not focused on the small entities. We're focused on the larger corporations and the loopholes that exist for some of those entity types.
Administrator Guzman, how many small businesses are organized as pass-through businesses?
Again, I don't have those numbers off the hand, and I couldn't share those with you, but I'm happy to follow up with your staff, and we can have a more
Administrator Guzman, there's approximately 95% of small businesses that are pass-through. Has the Biden administration proposed rolling back the Section 199A deduction on these pass-through incomes, thus potentially increasing taxes on some 95% of small businesses that are organized as pass-through businesses?
I'm not familiar with the specifics, so we will have to follow up, but I appreciate the question. And of course, small businesses seek simplicity. They are, obviously, it's critical that we are able to help them both on the revenue side of the equation as well as support them with a tax structure that doesn't favor large corporations.
Will the Biden administration increase taxes on pass-through corporations?
Again, I don't have those specifics.
How will a substantial increase in the capital gains tax and regulation help small businesses, quote, build back better?
I appreciate the line of questioning around the tax issues for small businesses. Obviously, it's really critical that our economists continue to look at ways that we can improve the economy and help those small businesses across the board. Again, the focus is on trying to ensure that the system is equitable for our small entities as well as large corporations, and ensure that
Administrator Guzman, in light of time, I just have 30 seconds.
Sure.
Will the increase in the capital gains tax help or hurt small businesses?
It will depend on the size and scale of those investments, so I can't speak specifically. I don't have the analysis.
So you can't answer the question whether capital gains will help or hurt small businesses?
I don't have the full analysis, economic analysis on that.
Madam Chair, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. This is the reason why we need Secretary Yellen here. SBA administrator is in charge of programs that have nothing to do with tax policies. Now we recognize Ms. Newman from Illinois for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Velasquez, and thank you, Ranking Member, for putting this together. Administrator Guzman, welcome. So I'm just going to refer to my colleagues' comments just right before me. By and large, when we've spoken to the Biden administration at length, they are making sure that small business is not affected by any tax increase of the largest of companies. And again, I stress that the Biden administration has made, in fact, that's a line in the sand I would be willing to commit to from the Biden administration. So that for the record. And then secondly, capital gains has been studied time and time again. It never affects small businesses the way my colleague is suggesting. So I encourage him to look that up. But my question for you
I'm going to chime in on that. She just said capital gains never affects small businesses the way they're talking about. Capital gains does affect small businesses the way they're talking about. If I'm just going to put this in perspective. If minimum wage goes up to $15 an hour as a small business owner, it's going to affect you. If capital gains goes up to the small business owners they think small business owners make $30,000 a year. Some small businesses make $2 million a year. Anything over $400,000, it's going to affect them. So I just totally disagree with this woman, but we'll keep it going. What do you think? Please let us know.
Administrator Guzman is regards two things. Is that I know you have hit the ground running since March 17th. Lot going on, very obviously, but structurally, some of the things the first thing you do when I've gone into an organization is to look at the structure of the organization. Have you made enhancements or improvements across your leadership? And you don't have to get into hiring, firing, but have you reorganized in any way that will help address some of the issues that have been cited, right? Data integrity, there is a little bit of fraud out there, and some of the other bigger issues. So if you can talk broadly about your structural reorg.
Well, the number one thing is that we continue to look.
That was a
at
softball question.
And that includes the structure and how we and how our departments are functioning under leadership. However, across the board, what we've tried to implement is an enterprise-wide approach. Breaking down some of those silos and increasing collaboration across the board. A great example is in the Eidl and PPP programs. Our Office of Capital Access and Office of Disaster Assistance are working more collaboratively now with the Office of Field Operations so that those boots on the ground of the SBA and district offices across the country are able to access information on those loans for our constituents and be able to help them through the process. Previously, that was shut down. And so we've re-implemented that as an example. So that cross-collaboration, the enterprise-wide approach has definitely already been started, and we'll continue to look at other improvements specifically within departments as we move forward.
Thank you for that. Second question is with regard to Community Navigator. I thought this was a brilliant program. About 80% of my GDP in Illinois 3 are companies under 15 employees and under 2 million in net revenue. And therefore, these folks, the owners, and they're largely family owned, are working very hard every day on their business and don't have time to navigate onerous documents. And so the Community Navigator program, I think, is brilliant, but I know that we're not quite there yet. Can you give us an update on when those navigators will be available and if you're going to use consultants and volunteers and the like? So if you can share.
Yes, on the Community Navigator pilot program, the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, was released yesterday. We have a 45-day open period for nonprofits, both national as well as local, regional, to apply to either be a hub or a spoke in the system. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to get hyperlocal with authentic and competent local organizations who can help businesses navigate the resources that are available to them and hopefully better access them in the future.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being here. And I yield back.
The gentle lady yields back. Now
that was totally the runaround, Reamer. Totally
runaround.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I'm a small business owner, have been for 51 years. I'm also the author of the Save Our Stages bill that we've been talking about today. Madam Chairman, you're head of the Small Business Administration, correct? Can you hear me, Madam Chairman?
Well, are you speaking?
You're head of the SBA, right?
Yes, I'm
okay.
Of the SBA.
All right. So my question is, have you ever met a payroll? Have you ever started a small business? Have you ever drawn a line of credit? Have you ever sold a product?
Yes, I have. I come from a family of small business owners. And
and just to help you along the way, let me tell you, on these tax issues you're getting asked about, just remember this: low taxes helps business, high taxes hurt business. Now, I sent you letters on February 4th, February 25th, March 18th, April 9th, April 15th, and April 19th to try to give my constituents an update on the Save Our Stages and the PPP program. And like we've heard today, to date, I have not received one response, even with the chairwoman being on these letters with us. So what you're doing, you're ignoring my request. You're blowing me off.
Chiming in there. I feel this. Higher taxes, yes, they hurt businesses, no doubt about it. But this is the vice ranking member, Williams, Texas congressman, who's saying, look, man, I'm sending you letters upon letters and you're not getting back to me. You're blowing me off. How many of us feel that way as business owners? Have they been blowing you off? Doesn't it feel like you're trying to get through to them and they're just blowing you off? Kind of like this $10,000 grant, just blowing it off. We're trying to get answers to why, and we're not getting clear answers why we can't get it, other than this map and stuff like that. So it feels like, I think a lot of us feel like we're being blown off from the SBA as well. I just wanted to throw that in there. What are your thoughts on what this gentleman is saying about that?
You're blowing 700,000 people off in my district in Texas that sent me to Washington to help fix problems. So, Madam Administrator, when we spoke on the phone last month, you said that these communication problems would be fixed, and yet nothing has changed, not only for me, but for others. So what are you going to do to get these communication issues fixed? Or should we just talk to lobbyists? I mean, we're hearing more from lobbyists than we are from your office. So should we talk to you or lobbyists? How are you going to get this fixed? And with a short answer, please.
We're the
I remain
lobbyists.
committed to transparency and collaboration, and we've done over 100 briefings to date. We're providing weekly, monthly reports, an increase in outreach to our oversight committee.
But you have failed to call me back. Second question. Today marks 151 days since the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program was signed into law by President Trump. I am the author of that. We've seen countless music venues and movie theaters go out of business while the rest have been struggling to keep their doors open until this vital assistance hits their bank accounts. And as these businesses have been waiting while the Small Business Administration struggles to get the program off the ground, the agency turned all their focus to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and got funds in bank accounts within 7 days of the application opening. To the date that now has sent nearly $28.6 billion out the door, while the Save Our Stages program has delivered absolutely zero, nothing. So it's hard to classify the SBA's rollout of this program under your watch as anything but a total disaster and a total failure. So on behalf of 12,000 venues who've waited over 5 months, when will these businesses see the money? We understand today through the lobbyists, we've learned that. And is it a problem? Was this way because this was a President Trump thing and you just pushed it aside, like we saw so many with the Biden administration? So why can't we get it right like we did with the restaurants?
I appreciate that question, and I just to clarify, this Shuttered Venues Operator Grants Program is being administered by a whole different team, our Office of Disaster Assistance. We actually placed the Restaurant Revitalization Fund in a different office to ensure resources.
Well, why don't you give it to that group and let them get? Why don't you Madam Chairman? Why don't you give it to that group and let them get it out?
Well, actually, this team has been working really diligently around the clock. They are capable and being effective in terms of finally overcoming some of the initial technical issues that we experienced with the vendor. This program, obviously, we've had over 13,000 applications and we're working through those as quickly as possible.
Right.
This was a much more complex program as written. Some of those learnings, yes, were taken as the RRF was written so that we had some simplification in the process by statute.
I hear you. I've got another question, but it's going to be hard to tell those people that, okay? Now, thirdly, building off this last question, when we say that there's been zero money delivered to Save Our Stages, that is just talking about the first priority group. There are two more groups that will likely be waiting until July to receive any money at the rate we're currently moving. So additionally, we saw the RRF that the money ran out the first priority group was after they were able to apply. So Administrator Guzman, can we expect to see the same numbers in the Save Our Stages program with a great deal of businesses being left out of any assistance at all, as we did with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, or should we just ask the lobbyists?
We actually have, applicants from all of those priority groups. So the 90% losses, we have about 4,000. We have, another couple thousand in the 70%, another 4,000 in the 25%. So we encourage everyone to apply. We don't anticipate that this money.
They do apply, but they can't get the money.
Correct. We're processing them as we go in those priority categories. However, based on the demand so far that we've seen, we do believe that we have enough funding.
Well, you need more people then, I guess, that to help get it done. Anyway, I think my time is up, Madam Chairman. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize the gentle lady from Georgia, Ms. Bordeaux.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez and Ranking Member Lukemeyer. And thank you, Administrator Guzman, for joining us today and for reaching out to the many small businesses
Bordeaux knows who we are.
District, holding a forum here to help them as you rolled out the Restaurant Revitalization Program. The Paycheck Protection Program, as you know, has provided millions of small businesses with a lifeline to keep their doors open and employees on the payroll over the past 14 months. But now that the PPP funds are virtually exhausted, we're hearing from more and more small business owners who will be seeking loan forgiveness in the coming months. Nearly 2 million 2020 PPP loan recipients have yet to apply for forgiveness. And I know that they're anxious to better understand how they can obtain this. So I was just wondering how the SBA is working with lenders to re-engage borrowers and ensure that they understand how to apply for loan forgiveness, And have you observed a difference in the speed or manner in which the large versus small PPP lenders have processed their borrowers' forgiveness applications?
We are working closely with the lenders to just make sure that we have the systems in place to support the forgiveness applications that will be coming in. In addition, we're looking to be creative about how we can find innovative ways to streamline that process as we move forward into forgiveness, especially for, as I mentioned previously, the $150,000 to $2 million range that doesn't have the expedited process. And so we do expect, and what we've seen in the past is that it's all different sizes of forgiveness loans of the 60% that we've processed so far from 2020 loans. And so we haven't seen any specific trends. I think just overall, folks are looking for simplicity, looking for assistance, and we hope to continue to try to provide the outreach necessary to support them.
Okay, well, thank you. One other question here, Eidl, about the Eidl program. It's provided over $200 billion in relief to small businesses since last March, but less than.
Okay, guys, pay close attention to this one right here. This is about the Eidl loan money. I'm going to back it up just a tad. I would like you all to, check it out. This is very important. Check it out.
And just overall, folks are looking for simplicity, looking for assistance, and we hope to continue to try to provide the outreach necessary to support them.
Okay, well, thank you. One other question here, Eidl, about the Eidl program. It's provided over $200 billion in relief to small businesses since last March, but less than $10 billion in new loans have been approved since February. And you mentioned in your testimony that the Small Business Administration still has about $263 billion in loan program authority remaining. Do you have information on the amount of unspent funds appropriated for the COVID-19 Eidl subsidies?
Yes, and what we're doing on Eidl is to continue. Obviously, I made that initial change, increasing the limit from 150,000 to 500,000. We saw 1.5 billion in demand come through from just that change alone. And as I committed, we will be increasing that to 2 million, which is the true authority of the Eidl program, so that we can continue to support businesses that need that assistance. There is 263 billion in authority left. And we will be focused on making sure that those businesses who are interested in it can access the program.
Just to follow up, the 260.
I got to chime in here. Guys, she's talking about getting the Eidl grant money or loan money. $260 billion has not been spent. Isabel Guzman saying right now, she is saying that we're going to we're upping it to 2 million. Instead of the $500,000 caps, we're upping it to 2 million, and it's this thing that we did. But here's what I don't get: if they're changing the rules, that intent of Congress, they're doing it? Why can't they do it with the CARES Act? She's doing the same thing Carranza did with the money that they said you can't do that. You changed the law without going to Congress or the Senate, but they're doing it. She's doing this part without going to the Congress or Senate. So why can't, if she's doing it here, why can't she do it elsewhere? This is kind of like a double standard that we're seeing. Like, she's saying she can't do it for the grant, but she can do it for the loans. This isn't really adding up at all. So what do you think about that? And plus, there's $260 billion still out there that they've only put $10 billion to the people during the worst time. What do you guys think? What's going on here? Am I just reading this wrong?
$3 billion in loan authority represents how much in the funds appropriated that are used to support that $263 billion? How much remains of the funds appropriated in that program?
I'll have to follow up with you and get that specific.
Okay, we appreciate that. And if the maximum loan amount is increased to 2 million, as you mentioned in your testimony, how much of those funds do you anticipate will be used?
We are not sure yet of that demand as we roll out that program by July. We're hoping to finalize the technology to accommodate for those increases. We'll start to get a better sense of the.
If they're going to roll out that program, they're going off of what the American Heroes Act told them to do. They're going away from what Congress's intent. They're taking it upon themselves to do things here. Why can't they do that with our Eidl grant? it doesn't make any sense. It still doesn't, Guzman.
Those numbers and can share that with the committee at that time.
Okay, thank you so much. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentle lady yields back, and now we recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman, and thank you, Administrator, for being with us, and certainly thanks to our ranking member, Lukemeyer. So the PPP loans were quite successful. They weren't perfect. They were a lifeline. We did a lot. It was a very holistic approach to assuring that they were efficient, valid, purposeful as possible. Secretary Mnuchin and many members and banks and small businesses, it was very inclusionary on how to get it right. It still is very important, of course, and I am hearing from many businesses as well as banks that there are problems with the forgiveness initiatives, primarily related to loans between $150,000 and $2 million, and the loan forgiveness over $2 million. I'm not sure any have been forgiven as of yet. Now, we all understand that there's going to be a audit of the loans over $2 million. But Administrator, is there a plan? Because currently it is a problem for banks and businesses. We're not seeing a real process for forgiveness of these loans in these categories. Can you comment on that, please?
For the over $2 million loan categories, yes, there is a specific process that it's an individual review. Obviously, those were flagged for SBA loan review due to the amount, and there is a process that SBA is following to review those with bank partnership. And so, I know that those obviously this is a huge task that the SBA is taking on. And will increasingly be so as those payments come due. So we're hoping to try to come up with a streamlined process as well for those 150 to 2 million bucket as well, as you mentioned, to make sure that those can be processed efficiently and give us the time and the resources to be able to address those individual reviews of the 2 million plus.
Sure, thank you. Is it a priority, and will we see some sort of plan that will be put into effect?
Yes, it's a priority. We are working on that currently. So hopefully we can follow up soon with some specifics.
Great. Administrator, Representative Stauber brought up the 20% business income deduction that occurred in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Many small businesses are concerned about the Biden administration's plans for tax increases. Can you tell us what you think about the 20% removal from small businesses? And are you weighing in with the Biden administration on behalf of the millions of small businesses in our country to assure or do what you can to keep that deduction in place? Because that deduction, I think was not a gift to the wealthy. It helped small businesses expand, get stronger, and hire more employees, as we saw with a 3.5% unemployment rate. Your thoughts on the 20%?
Yeah, I mean, I closely collaborate with the Office of Advocacy as well, that has the economists that can do the research as well. Clearly, I'm not a tax expert. That's not my forte. I'm administering these programs on behalf of the Small Business Administration for relief for small businesses. So I continue to try to track those issues and report up our findings, to the necessary channel.
Yeah. It's a major interest and a factor for small businesses' growth, survival, and just maintaining and working through the recovery. So I think the SBA administrator should be very much an advocate for the health of small business. As well, it came up before about capital gains, and that's very important. The idea that the Biden administration wants to raise capital gains from 20% to 43% does have a great effect. If a small business is looking for a partner and or thinking about selling and retiring and passing the business along, that transfer has to take place. That's going to cost them 23%, which is $23,000 per $100,000. So it's not a trivial thing. It's very important. The other thing I want to bring up, please, is the unemployment compensation. 90% of my small businesses in my district are are literally diametrically opposed to the President Biden's comment that the additional supplement of unemployment compensation, as the president said, is not measurable for the level of workforce availability. And I will tell you this, I do weekly business calls with dozens of small businesses, and virtually 100% say it's the number one issue, if not the number two issue of that they face, a headwind that they face. Can you comment on that? Do you believe that where some of this is being targeted in some states, and it is going to, by law, continue the supplement through August? Again, as an advocate for small businesses, I would hope you would recognize that, be inclusionary, talk to the small businesses, and get directly from them what their concerns are and work on their behalf.
The gentleman's time has expired.
I yield back, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And now we recognize the gentleman from the newest member in the committee, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your very warm and gracious welcome. I am honored to be a part of this Congress, honored to be a part of this committee. Ranking Member Lukemire, good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. Well, I guess it's still morning. Thank you all very much. And Administrator Guzman, I'd like to personally thank you. I know your job has been difficult. I feel the frustration of all of the members here. I share their frustration, but I also recognize that you have a very difficult task. There's nothing in the playbook to address a worldwide pandemic. The pain that it has caused for many of the people throughout our country, certainly in the 2nd Congressional District, we are no different. So I applaud your efforts. I feel the frustration of my colleagues who express concerns about the availability of funds, the rapid nature of getting those funds, and the frustration that we hear from our business people. So at the risk of being redundant, I'll try to not repeat questions that have been asked, but I will share that as you know, I represent the 2nd Congressional District, which is Louisiana, home of the historic French Quarter and our beautiful river parishes up and down the river from West Jefferson to West Baton Rouge Parish. One of the issues that I repeatedly hear from small businesses is the ability to access PPP as rapidly as some of the larger companies that have access to lawyers and consultants and accountants. What plans, if any, do we have to address perhaps in the next round of resources to assist small businesses who oftentimes miss out because they don't have access to the resources of accountants and consultants to prepare paperwork?
Yes, and obviously once the Community Navigators pilot program is launched and those organizations are brought on board to fully help the SBA and communicating resources and supporting businesses through process of relief, that will obviously make a big difference. But I will submit that on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund program, we were able to effectively, through partnerships, reach to all different size businesses as well as from different communities and regions across the country. And so really that's reflected in the applications, the interest, the access. And I think what also was attractive was that we created a simple process, leveraging technology, using partners such as Square and Toast and other point of sale vendors to help us access those restaurants who are underserved so that they can connect to the platform and apply for the program. So I think that there are some learnings in our Restaurant Revitalization Fund in terms of how we do our outreach, how we're structuring our programs so that they are more customer friendly so that businesses of all sizes can access the program easily. We'll be applying those types of learnings across our programs as we move forward.
And Madam Administrator, I have some thoughts that I'd like to share with you, and my staff will be preparing some documents to share with you, some thoughts that I think may assist with kind of segregating those funds and make it easier for small businesses to access them. One final question as my time runs out. As you know, in Louisiana, we're just about 15 years past Katrina, one of the largest hurricanes and issues ever hit natural disasters that ever hit Louisiana for certain. Many of our small businesses are still suffering and still paying back SBA loans from that situation and have since had other situations of similar magnitude like COVID. What relief, if any, can we look forward to in the way of forgiveness of some of those Katrina-related SBA loans?
We did provide debt relief on all our programs. We've extended payments on any Eidl loans to 2022, but in terms of any forgiveness, we'd be happy to collaborate with you, work with you to provide you any information that you need about our programs, and we will implement any programs that Congress directs to us.
Very good. And finally, I'd like to once again thank Representative and Chairman Velasquez for governing this meeting as smoothly as you have. And thank you, Administrator Guzman, for making yourself available. I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. And now we recognize the gentle lady from New York, Ms. Channing.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez and Ranking Member Lukemeyer for holding this meeting. And I want to say thank you to Administrator Guzman for being here. We know that working at SBA is not an easy job right now, especially in light of the pandemic. I have a couple of, and I might add, thank you for being here. Very disappointed that Secretary Yellen hasn't made the effort to be here. She did speak before Financial Services in the past and really needs to fulfill her legal obligation to be here. So hopefully we'll be hearing from her soon. And I'm sure Chairwoman Velasquez and Ranking Member Lukemeyer will make sure that happens. But I wanted to just address the administrator. This is an issue that is really big in my region. Actually, it's across the country. I am a small business owner. Our family business is celebrating our 75th year here. We almost didn't think we were going to make it because of the pandemic last year. So many of the programs put out by SBA and the CARES Act have been vitally important to us. But one of the big issues now facing every employer, everywhere I go, every business forum, it's the number one issue is the enhanced unemployment insurance benefits extending through August and how that is putting a huge impact on their ability to attract and to get people to work, and in some cases, their own employees back to work because the benefits are so strong. What is your opinion on that? And do you think that we could in some way target that relief instead of having this blanket coverage where, we are hurting even seasonal employees, seasonal businesses, agro businesses in my community? Ag is number one in my region. How do you think that, what do you think we can do to try to minimize that impact on small business owners?
From what I've heard from small businesses, it's a combination of factors, and definitely across the board, small businesses want help in making sure that their workers feel safe as well to come back to work. And so that's why we've been emphasizing heavily the vaccination rates, and by emphasizing the American Rescue Plan tax credit rather for small businesses who give time off to their employees to get that shot as well as recover from it, because we know that feeling safe in the workplace is also a big factor, and also just the vaccination rates would help with the care economy and with schools being reopened fully for the children to go back to work, because I'm also hearing that that's a huge factor for a lot of the employees.
Now is the perfect time to click that like and subscribe button, and thank you for watching Speak and See.
Potentially fear of COVID in the workplace, but as well that problem with having no care for children at home. And so I do believe that the Biden administration's focus on fighting COVID is going to go a long way towards helping our small businesses access workforce. And then,
can I just reclaim my time for a second? I'm not hearing that from small businesses. We have a fairly decent vaccination rate here, very low contraction rate, a low death rate in rural areas here. So my concern is that
all right, I'm going to back this up because I'm interested in what she just said. Guzman is talking about how she thinks that small businesses are afraid to go back to work because of the COVID virus. How many of you out there are afraid to go back to work because of the COVID virus? Do you think that has anything to do with the holdup on any of this or the vaccines, or do you think that I don't know. I disagree with Guzman on that. I don't think any of us out there are afraid to go back to work because of the virus. I think we've been hurt so bad because of it that we're trying to catch up now. But let me know what you think about that.
Go back to work, because I'm also hearing that that's a huge factor for a lot of the employees of these businesses, is that they, not only potentially fear of COVID in the workplace, but as well that problem with having no care for children at home. And so I do believe that the Biden administration's focus on fighting COVID is going to go a long way towards helping our small businesses access workforce. And then,
can I just reclaim my time for a second? I'm not hearing that from small businesses. We have a fairly decent vaccination rate here, very low contraction rate, a low death rate in rural areas here. So my concern is that many businesses either shut down entirely or invested, a small fortune, which is a lot for businesses, tens of thousands of dollars into plexiglass, PPE, and other items to make it safe for employees to go back to work. We're not talking about our police officers, our firemen, our essential workers, and all the other so-called essential. I think every worker is essential, but people who went back to work and are back to work, we have to get our economy going. I'm just concerned that if we don't have a more targeted approach, we're going to see a collapse in our economy, and we're going to have a problem getting them back to work. Don't you think that should be an issue that the Biden administration should be addressing you as the key administrator when it deals with small business? I mean, look at NFIB has said that almost 50% of businesses are specifically citing the enhanced unemployment as the reason that people are not coming back to work, because they can wait it out until August. And we know that's partly true. I know a lot of people are working, even though they might even be making less. Don't you think that's something the Biden administration should be doing to get our economy going again?
I know that we're looking at all the tools, and obviously that support in the economy, those additional funds have also propelled our economy and supported business revenue creation at the same time. So, it's not my position at the SBA to judge in terms of the best economic decisions to make overall for the economy, but I know that has been a shot in the arm in the economy to have that stimulus check distributed.
Right, but
the country.
We're running out of stimulus checks. Just one more thing, as you said, you're a small business owner. I mean, a lot of businesses are C corps. Our business has been around a long time. We're small. We're a C corp. We're hurt by taxes. I think if you're a business owner, I think you can safely say that taxes hurt all businesses, large and small, but are particularly harmful to small businesses. And in an area like mine, 94% of the jobs created in my region are from small businesses. So we don't deal with the large business problem. So these taxes are going to really hurt our community.
As I mentioned earlier, this is really President Biden's focus on taxpayers over earning, over $400,000 is really the priority focus, including the S corporation taxpayers. But all of the exceptions that are typically benefiting small businesses, the rent, capital gains, passive income will continue to apply. And so the budget includes provisions really to close those loopholes I referenced that allow larger corporate taxpayers with income over $400,000 from avoiding paying certain taxes. And so that's really the focus, as I referenced earlier. So I appreciate what you're hearing from the constituents. I hear a combination of course, that plus the COVID issues and the care economy issues in education. So I look forward to continuing to partner with you to help support our small business.
Thank you. I think my time's up, but thank you so much. And I appreciate your testimony and for actually being here today. Thank you.
The gentle lady's time has expired, and now we recognize the gentle lady from California, Ms. Chu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administrator Guzman, since the start of the pandemic, I've been extremely concerned about the Trump administration's failure to collect demographic data on PPP recipients. It prevented us from understanding which types of businesses benefited from the program at a time when so many were struggling. And that is why it was so significant that the Los Angeles Times had a recent investigation in which they reported an alarming finding that in LA, businesses in majority white neighborhoods in the early days of the PPP loans received loans at twice the rate of majority Latino areas, 1.5 times the rate of majority Black areas, and 1.2 times the rate in Asian areas. So clearly, There needs to be more help for underserved businesses. And one of the most important lessons of this past year is that community financial institutions can effectively reach businesses that are not served by traditional banks, and they can do so at scale. Now, I've long championed the Community Advantage program, which leverages nonprofit, mission-oriented lenders, and have authored legislation to give the program long-term stability by authorizing it for 5 years. So how can we expand the role of CFIs such as Community Advantage in the small business lending ecosystem so that we can support an equitable long-term recovery?
Well, one of the silver linings of the pandemic has been SBA's increased network of lenders that have been accessing the PPP program. And we hope to continue to partner with them, including those mission lenders, CDFIs and CDCs and others, to make sure that we're supporting small businesses that are underserved, because the data is stark in terms of access to these programs. And the U.S. Chamber had a similar study which showed that Black businesses were unable to access capital at the same rate, half the rate actually, of white businesses. And so you continue to see that in the data. And so the SBA is working hard to try to find solutions to partner with institutions that are serving these constituents, as well as all of our traditional banking partners, to better support through SBA programs capital access for these constituents.
Thank you for that. Administrator Guzman, I wanted to ask about another issue, which is the Shuttered Venue Grant Operator Program. I'm proud to represent Southern California and the countless live venues such as the Troubadour and the movie theaters that make our region so special. They were the first businesses to close and will be the last to reopen. And that is why the Shuttered Venue program includes this supplemental phase for businesses still experiencing deep losses in the first quarter of 2021, like so many of the live venues in LA County. But because of the program delays, SBA already actually has the necessary data from the applicants to calculate both the initial loans and the supplemental loans right now. So given the delayed implementation of this program, can you discuss if SBA can help these businesses by automatically calculating and processing the supplemental grant awards to expedite dispersal of these funds? And are there tools that Congress can provide to help you do this?
I've mentioned before that the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant Program was a complex statute that we were implementing, and the program design dictated by statute obviously had lots of controls for eligibility requirements. There were so many different types of entities that were eligible with very unique requirements under each. And we've worked very closely with our vendor and cross-agency to make sure that we were leveraging technology to the fullest and simplifying processes. And we're continually working through some of those issues to see how we can expedite as we go through in processing taxes and other issues. And so while there's, while the program has been delayed, I feel confident that we'll continue to start to roll out these funds as we have been doing this week. We appreciate the patience from the industry. Obviously, they don't have time to wait. The rent is due, and other expenses are critical for them. So we are working and take this program very seriously and implementing it as quickly as possible. And so we look forward to any further input that you have specifically with certain venues and how we can improve the experience.
Thank you. I yield back.
The lady yields back, and now we recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Garbarino.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you to the ranking member for doing this, and Administrator. We appreciate you being here. I want to echo my colleagues' disappointment in Secretary Yellen's absence today. But I have a question. I've been in Congress. I'm a new member for only a little under 5 months now. And prior to being in Congress, with my law practice and being in the State Assembly in New York, I dealt with SBA, the local offices, and they were very good in answering questions when I dealt with them. But my time now, and I've heard this from other members as well, a lot of questions to your office have gone unanswered. or been very delayed if they get an answer. Can you explain what's behind this underwhelming response? And if we can't receive a response directly from you and your team, what recommendations do you have for us to get answers to the questions that we have? It seems like the communication right now between the SBA and members of Congress is very bad. We would like to have something done in a timely manner. How can you help us with this?
Yes, and the SBA is working to increase communication. It has increased dramatically in the Biden and Harris administration. And so just to confirm, as I've said, we've had hundreds of briefings. We send out regular reports. And we continue to try to respond to all of these letters as quickly as possible. Understanding, of course, that these requests, require career staff time as well as sometimes days to pull these reports, and that's disruptive to the process. Obviously, we're highly impacted by the scale that we've had to reach in order to serve small businesses, which remains a priority. And we will continue to try to get through all of your requests as quickly as possible. So we appreciate your patience.
I understand that, and I know you're trying to talk with small businesses, but a lot of small businesses contact us when they have problems with the SBA. So we send questions over. I spoke to the previous administrator, Ms. McMahon, and she told some of us that she prioritized responses to members of Congress, where she got back to within several days. Is that something that we can count on your office for? That when a request comes in, when a question comes in from a member of Congress, that we can expect a response from your office within a matter of days?
Yes, and unfortunately during disaster, it's a little bit of a different situation because we're so impacted by all these programs, unlike under Administrator McMahon. However, yes, it is a priority. My team knows it's a priority.
I think you had COVID all last year.
What we've tried to do in the programs is, as I mentioned before, is open up access to some of those portals to our field operations as well. So I'm hoping that you're also in touch with our local field office as they can also help navigate some of these specific issues. But yes, constituent requests, those customer requests, we're trying to open up and access more of our team members to be able to answer questions like this. And so, yes, we will continue to try to work with you to speed that up. I do want to make sure that we'll reach out to you and make sure your staff is in contact with our field office, who has this expanded now access into our portals to be able to understand where loans are in the process.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I have another question. Dealing back with the Eidl program and fraud, the fraud's extremely concerning, the amount of fraud. We know that the SBA's Shuttered Venues grant program was flagged by serious problems in the beginning. It seems that new reports come out monthly on these programs. In your response to these reports, we know the SBA plans to inquire and implement many of the recommendations that it gets from the SBA Inspector General, that it gets from the Government Accountability Office regarding these relief programs. Out of these recommendations that you've received from the SBA Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office, how many recommendations have you gotten, and how many have you closed out, which means how many have you implemented of those recommendations?
Mm-hmm. A lot of the requests too, and a lot of the reports that we're seeing now are unfortunately assessing the portfolio in 2020. And so a lot of the controls were put in place post in 2021. And so unfortunately that's not reflected in a lot of the current reports, but we are working to close out as many of the IG and GAO reports as possible across the board. And my teams are in conference currently with the,
how many? I only have a few times. How many have you closed out your team to date? I believe you've had 32 recommendations, but how many have you closed to date? How many are open?
We'll follow up with you to give you that exact number.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Now we recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Administrator, many small businesses in my district, especially minority-owned businesses, are in desperate need of technical assistance. In your testimony, you mentioned that the American Jobs Plan will provide SBA the ability to create a national network of small business innovators and innovative hubs and technical assistance partners to ensure women and veterans and rural businesses basically receive the support they need. Could you please elaborate on this proposal and how it will work in the current resources?
Yeah, obviously the SBA has resource partners, our small business development centers, our women's business centers who have expanded recently, including through HBCUs, as well as SCORE. And so, with those resource partners, they play a critical role in helping us reach small businesses. But with the Community Navigator pilot program, we're going to be able to partner more extensively. Resource partners are eligible to apply to that as well, of course. But the point of that is to create a hub and spoke model where there's a central source of information and a network of more local navigators who can help small businesses connect to resources and help them understand the process, the application process, et cetera. And so, with that program, we hope to fund national as well as regional and local organizations to create that system of dispersing information about these programs as quickly as possible so that businesses that have traditionally been underserved would be able to access those relief programs.
So how would you say you think it's proceeding at this point?
We've just released the notice of funding opportunity yesterday. And so we know that we've done extensive outreach with organizations across the country to make sure that they were ready to apply through the grant portal process and hopefully serve our small businesses through the system. And that includes, diverse organizations and organizations across our regions that are underserved.
Madam Administrator, I thank you for your leadership and your organization, what they're doing. And I think the technical assistance is probably utmost importance. Obviously, resources are important, but the technical assistance, I believe, is very important as a priority. Again, I thank you for your leadership. Yield back, Madam Chair.
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize Ms. Kim from California for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I want to thank Administrator Guzman for joining us virtually, though I must say that I share Chair and Ranking Member and my colleagues' frustration, and I'm also disappointed Secretary Yellen is not testifying today to discuss how Treasury is assessing the impact on a possible increase in taxes on small businesses. As one of the members of Congress who helped craft the bipartisan PPP Extension Act, I wanted to follow up on some of the recent funding numbers that the SBA has been reporting and the decision to close the border. Let's acknowledge that the PPP application window will remain open for CFI lenders. So what specific steps did you take to alert all other lenders that the portal was going to close a few weeks back? And did you provide advance notice to the lenders? If so, how many days or weeks in advance did you provide?
We continue to communicate with the lenders through our portal. That's how we communicate with them regularly in terms of where we're at in the system. Obviously, all the lenders have been tracking closely the funding the remaining funds as we've been walking through this program and reaching the end. So I don't believe it should have come as a complete surprise to many, and we informed them in advance that we were.
Right, let me reclaim my time. As a follow-up then, what should lenders do if they have an application with an unknown status?
If there are any lenders with hold codes in the system, we're working through those still. Those funds remain for those lending institutions, and their ability to process them remains open. And they have not been shut out from the system. If it's for new loans, obviously they can work through CFIs, whether it's MDIs or CDCs or CDFIs, to partner and make sure that those new applicants get through.
Thank you. The PPP Extension Act also extended application deadline to the end of this month, but it also gave SBA extra 30 days to work through all error code issues for loans currently in the pipeline. So can you please provide us with a detailed response on how you envision the SBA using this 30-day period after the application window closes? So will all eligible applications that clear their error codes be able to proceed?
Our goal is to work with all the lending institutions that still intend to move forward on any of their held applications to get them to completion. And so those extra 30 days will be helpful. There is a process in place for SBA to coordinate with the lenders to make sure that any information is cleared, and that the borrower is informed through the lender of any requests for further information to release any of these holds.
Okay, thank you. Well, next question. How are the SBA's entrepreneur development programs like SBDC, WBC, VBOC, SCORE administered to avoid duplication and prevent fraud?
Across all of our grant programs, obviously we take fraud seriously as well. Our SCORE partners, as well as our SBDCs, WBCs, have very strict, and VBOCs have very strict reporting requirements to the agency, and we follow through with audits across the board as well.
Okay, well, let me ask one last question here. Are there
Why the hell would I take a test?
To consolidate programs and resources to make it easier for small businesses to access resources in a one-stop shop? Additionally, what efforts are you taking to combat fraud and protect taxpayer dollars?
Mm-hmm. Across our resource partners, obviously, they're all engaged in local ecosystem building to try to support, along with our field offices, small businesses and the support that they need. And so, we believe that the cooperative approach is most valuable to us. And so we make sure that all of our departments are collaborating with these resource partners and have open communication to make sure that they're positioned well to support small businesses. And our field offices are really critical in bringing them all together, and that will apply towards the Community Navigator pilot program as well. We see that all these resource partners have been inundated during COVID and have been contacted by many new businesses for support, and we hope that engagement will continue as we move forward. In terms of fraud controls or prevention of any misuse of those programs, again, our grants programs management is positioned with processes to make sure that funds are used and how we intended them to be used to support small businesses with technical assistance.
Well, thank you. I see that my time's up. I'll yield back. Thank you.
Has expired. And now we recognize the gentle lady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Houlihan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you all for being here. I have several questions, and my first one has to do with PPP loans and the forgiveness process. Through a bill that I introduced and that was signed into law as part of the economic aid this past December, SBA is now able to provide small businesses that received a loan of $150,000 or less with a streamlined forgiveness process using the 350-08S forgiveness form. This was really a welcome change for small businesses and lenders to be able to streamline the forgiveness process and to make it easier for our smallest businesses to get that relief. However, based on data that was released by the SBA, there still are a substantial number of borrowers who have not yet submitted nor have been approved for forgiveness. And I've heard suggestions from advocates lately that simplifying the forgiveness application and associated requirements for all PPP loans between $150,000 and $2 million would further allow a more streamlined process. And it has also been raised that additional resources may be needed to help the SBA expedite reviews for PPP loans greater than $2 million. So as the agency is beginning to move forward and move their focus from the origination phase to the forgiveness phase, what kind of considerations are being made by you all to ensure that there is an efficient forgiveness process? Do you also feel that raising the current cap on PPP loans eligible for streamlined forgiveness from $150 to $2 million would help you better serve our businesses?
Thank you for that. We are looking at best practices in that $150,000 and under range, because clearly that simplicity is beneficial to our small businesses applying. We do want to apply similar type, streamlined processes for the 150 to 2 million, and they're exploring options currently. And so we welcome a partnership in trying to circle back with you once we have more specifics to recommend. Obviously, we're talking to lenders who have been implementing PPP to understand what they're seeing and what they're hearing in terms of why borrowers are not pursuing forgiveness at this time. But we know that that cliff is coming with payments due, and want to make sure that we move forward to create a system that they will access more readily.
And I apologize for my dogs in the background. Thank you, and I look forward to working with you on that as well. My next question has to do with concerns that constituents in my community have been raising with me related to, and I recognize you are facing unique challenges with the pandemic, but with your agency being asked to distribute federal assistance to small businesses, we are definitely hearing a lot more about customer service and the needs to have a more effective customer service. What recommendations do you have to improve the customer experience for those of us in our communities who are seeking assistance from SBA?
And some measures we put into place, but I've asked my staff to be as entrepreneurial as the small businesses that we serve, and obviously we're providing strong customer support and service is really critical for small businesses as they seek revenues every single day. And so we've tried to take that approach, with our small businesses. They obviously need information easily accessible, as well as in simple terms. And so we've really been partnering externally with many organizations to better reach small businesses with authentic voices, people who can help them navigate and translate government to better support their needs. And in addition, we've equipped our field with more.
Okay, chiming in again, guys. Sorry. Is anybody here getting frustrated that they're not talking about how you're going to get this Eidl money, the $260 billion, to us? How are you going to get the money to us? What are you doing to get the Eidl $260 billion still left in Eidl loans to us? That is all we need to know. And the $10,000 grants. What are you doing to get the money to us? Why are we not there yet? Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. I just feel like I'm getting ready to scream, but I'm not going to do that.
Information and direct access to our programs so that they can better support our small businesses and turn around these requests. Obviously, SBA has been inundated, but we're working to try to find better ways with technology as well to streamline processes, including support to give small businesses answers and resources that they need ASAP.
And I would look forward to working with you as well on that. It definitely is a trend that, and I understand the volume that you are realizing right now with PPP and Eidl and a number of other large programs that you're implementing, some more successfully than others. But if there's anything that our office or this committee can be doing to help you as you work through what best practices are on customer service, I would welcome that as well. I only have half a minute left, so I guess I would ask how we can be better supporting you on issues of fraud as well. If there's 20 seconds worth of ideas that you might have that we can help on the fraud area, that would be a welcome last couple seconds.
SBA is continuing to use resources. We've obviously scaled up on.
Everybody, I just want you to write in there, what grade do you give these? If these were teachers or if these were students, what grade would you be giving them right now? I would give them a flat out F. We are not leaving this meeting until something with substance is talked about. This is an F. F plus.
Customer service as well as our fraud teams. And so that support, that financial support for extra administrative funds has been helpful for that. And so that continued support will be important going forward.
Thank you. I've run out of time and I yield back, Madam Chair.
Gentle lady yields back. And now we recognize the gentle lady from Texas, Ms. Van Dyne.
Thank you very much, Chairman Velasquez. I very much appreciate the fact that you've called upon and recognized the importance of getting Secretary Yellen here to answer some of these most basic questions. And I hope that we'll continue to push her and make sure that she does have an opportunity to speak directly to our committee. Thank you, Administrator Guzman, for being here today. You've been unable to answer or unprepared to answer a lot of the questions that have been proposed and posed to you by my colleagues, specifically those proposed impacts of the current administration, the impacts of.
I like what she just said. She said, you've been unable to answer a lot of these questions. I agree with this lady. I agree with her. Guzman has really not answered anything.
Increasing the minimum wage. And are you familiar that NFIB has found that 92% of small business owners felt the wage mandate would harm their businesses?
I am familiar. I know as well, though, that there's other studies that show that there's other factors that are impacting the workforce and small businesses' ability to hire.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, including the enhanced unemployment benefits. I was surprised when you said that you hadn't heard that so much, that what you had heard from small business owners was their questioning of coming back in a safe environment. I think Congresswoman Tinney was very clear that they have purchased and invested a lot of money into ways of making sure that they're coming back in a safe environment. So, not being very clear about the unenhanced unemployment benefits and the effects that that's having on small businesses. They increase on capital gains and the effects that will have on small businesses you've been unable to answer. And quite frankly, not having any information about what the increase in the corporate tax rate would have on small businesses, not just on the direct costs, but on the indirect costs. For example, increases in utility rates. Administrator Guzman, you are charged with running the Small Business Administration that was created to aid, counsel, assist, and protect small businesses. And yet you're not aware of many of the proposed increases and tax consequences that will directly affect small businesses that are coming out of this administration. I guess my question is, if you are not aware of the effects and the impacts of these policies that are coming down the Biden administration, who's advising the administration for small businesses?
Well, I mean, I know that, as we've discussed this before, I've said that President Biden's plan is really focused on closing those loopholes for the larger corporations. And I will submit that.
I give back my time. I disagree. It's not just, it's what it may be focused, but they're increasing the corporate tax rate. When asked, will that affect small businesses? What was your answer?
Only a very small percentage of small businesses are C corporations. We talked about that previously.
Regardless of whether or not they're C corporations, will increased corporate tax rate affect small businesses?
Again, I mean, the Biden's plan is focused on those who have earnings over $400,000. And so, yes, there will be small businesses that are included in that.
If the gentle lady please allow the witness to answer the questions.
If she answers the questions, I would really appreciate it.
Look, I mean, the bottom line is that, there are important provisions. President Biden has pledged to not increase taxes on taxpayers earning less than $400,000, and including S corporation taxpayers. All of the exceptions, as I said.
I would really appreciate it if you would answer the question: what would be the impact? And I know it's not the focus, but there will be direct and indirect impacts on increasing our corporate tax rate. Correct, on small businesses.
Not on the smallest businesses. I mean, so again,
we're small businesses defined by your administration and by your department. I mean, things like increases in utility taxes and utility costs, those will be felt by small businesses, correct?
Small businesses will, will continue to, have to navigate, the systems in place and any increases that vendors might transfer to them. But, again, the focus on this tax reform is really to ensure that that there's a level playing field for the smaller entities. I appreciate that SBA supports all small businesses. It could be as large as 500 employees. And
so I reclaim my 20 seconds left. It's obvious that small businesses that you're speaking with aren't telling you what the rest of us across the country are hearing. I would welcome you. I would invite you to come down to Texas 24 in Dallas, Fort Worth, and speak with the small businesses that we are talking to that will tell you what the problems are directly so that you can be more prepared. And maybe then when you are more prepared and you've heard directly from small businesses, you can circle back with this committee and let us know what we're doing to be able to really prepare and protect our small businesses across the country.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in here. I liked what she said. She was real about it. She kept it straight up and didn't hold any punches. It's about small businesses, about us. are we going to feel the pain of the tax rate? Are we going to feel the pain of this? And that was, I wish Guzman could have given, actually Guzman did answer it. She said, yes, they're going to feel it. Anybody who makes above 400,000 is going to feel it. So, Guzman did answer that, but I did like her questioning, and I thought that there was finally a little bit of substance in there. Well done on the lady from Texas.
As these Biden administration policies are coming down. I yield back my time. Thank you very much.
The gentlelady yields back, and now we recognize the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Kim. But let me just react to this line of questioning. First of all, the topic of this hearing is an examination of SBA COVID relief programs.
Can you see her? She's getting mad. Nydia Velasquez is getting mad. She's trying to protect Guzman from any hard questions. She is trying to make sure Guzman gets fed questions that she can answer easily. She didn't like the fact that Guzman just was challenged, which is what we're all here. I thought we were here to do, was to challenge her. What do y'all think about that? What do you think about the questions she was just asked? Were they too hard? Or was that hard question something that helps you out more as a business owner to understand those hard questions other than these little softballs? To me, that's why we're here.
And the gentlelady, the administrator, is prepared to answer the questions related to the implementation of those programs. There will be a time for us to hold a hearing on any tax policies, but this is not the space. And I think the taxpayers deserves answers from the administrator as it relates to those programs that have been implemented by the current administration. And now, Mr. King.
Some time in response to your comments there. Those tax questions are fair questions because we're talking about the COVID activities and policies of this administration of the SBA, and tax policy on those new programs is very important. To have a basic understanding of the tax policies' effect on small businesses will help us understand how these COVID policies, these COVID programs can be helpful. If we find out that there's more detrimental effect from the tax policy, we need to understand how that can affect the COVID policies, the COVID programs. They are very appropriate. It's unfortunate the administrator is unprepared today to answer basic questions about the administration's program. She is not representing the Small Business Administration.
Whoa, you hear that? He is yelling at Guzman right now and Nydia saying you are unable to answer any of the questions we're asking you. We're asking you questions and you're giving us the runaround, and it's unfair to us as small businesses that you cannot answer them. So don't tell me that we shouldn't be asking her these hard questions. That was pretty solid there from our Lukemeyer. Yeah, Lukemeyer, that was pretty solid. I'm going to go back a little bit.
And I think the taxpayers deserves answers from the administrator as it relates to those programs that have been implemented by the current administration. And now, Mr. King.
Some time in response to your comments there. Those tax questions are fair questions because we're talking about the COVID activities and policies of this administration of the SBA. And tax policy on those new programs is very important. To have a basic understanding of the tax policies' effect on small businesses will help us understand how these COVID policies, these COVID programs can be helpful. If we find out that there's more detrimental effect from the tax policy, we need to understand how that can affect the COVID policies, the COVID programs. They are very appropriate. It's unfortunate the administrator is unprepared today to answer basic questions about the administration's program. She is not representing the Small Business Administration at the table when the administration is talking about tax policy, which is extremely alarming because if she's not there, who is? Those are questions we need to have answered because all of this factors into how we address the COVID problem in this country.
I just wish that you were so forceful when we were conducting oversight hearings with the previous administration as it related to the fact that ineligible.
Dude, she's getting political with it. Why is she worried about the other administration? Why weren't you so forceful with them? This is not about them. We were forceful. We were so yelling at the Trump administration. Carranza, you suck. Mnuchin, you suck. Trump, you suck for what you were doing. And we came at you with it. So look at her, the way she's getting ready to cry because we're asking Guzman tough questions. This is our lives. This is my life. This is my life. I'm a small businessman. I should know these answers, and they can't give it to us. And she's mad that we're asking hard questions. Whoa, look at her. She's about to cry. Nydia Velázquez does not deserve this job because this is partisanship right here. This is ridiculous. Just telling you like it is.
To relate to those programs that have been implemented by the current administration. And now, Mr. King.
Some time in response to your comments there. Administration at the table when the administration is talking about tax policy, which is extremely alarming because if she's not there, who is? Those are questions we need to have answered because all of this factors into how we address the COVID problem in this country.
I just wish that you were so forceful when we were conducting oversight hearings with the previous administration as it related to the fact that ineligible businesses were able to get assistance, relief assistance that didn't qualify for. And so with that, Mr. King.
We were at the table. We contacted Secretary Mnuchin and said, hey, we got a problem. And immediately he took action. If you recall, he got in the middle of this and rescinded about $280 million worth of loans to people and the businesses that were ineligible. Yes, we were active on this and we'll continue to be, I can assure you.
And we will continue to be active on tax policies, and we will have Secretary Yellen at the table, and we will discuss those issues. But to be fair to the witness, the topic today is related to COVID-19 programs. Mr. Kim, now you recognize for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman and Administrator Guzman. Thank you for
that was weird.
Some time to come before our committee. I've been on this committee since my time in Congress, and we certainly are trying to maintain the tradition of bipartisanship on this committee. This recognition that both parties are trying to do what they can to be able to support our small business. That's the reason why I wanted to stay on this committee, because I felt like it was one of the few places in the last Congress where we were able to talk with each other civilly, with respect, and talk through a shared problem that we face with small businesses going through some of the toughest challenges in modern history. And I know you have a lot on your plate, and SBA has been working hard to be able to do this. Some places where it has not performed the way that I'd like, but other places where I understand that it's been a tough go. And one place I want to just kind of hone in on is about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Now, I know that this has been moving forward, that you've been trying to take on some lessons learned from the launch of the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant Program as well. And I know that the application is something that has been tried to be simplified and easy to use so that restaurants are able to move forward with this. And especially when it comes to making the program accessible for the smallest independent restaurants and the socially disadvantaged business owners. I'm also aware that the SBA had to work within the rules set by Congress, including how the funding amounts are calculated. So you didn't have a lot of discretion to spread around the $28.6 billion that we knew would not even come close to meeting the demand. Still, I'm very concerned to hear from businesses in my district, including socially disadvantaged businesses that are supposed to be prioritized, that their applications have been rejected without being provided a reason or an opportunity to correct errors. I worry that many of the most vulnerable.
This guy is interesting what he just said there, that they priorities socialized, the underserved people that were prioritized for this loan. And he's saying the same thing I'm saying. They're not getting the money either. the African Americans and Asians and the low income, they're not seeing it like all of you out there might believe that, hey, well, they're getting all the money. No, they're not. Nobody's getting it. That's the problem, because they're trying so hard to segregate the businesses right now that even those that they're trying to give it to are being left out because they think they might fit into a category that they don't, or they filled out the wrong paperwork. But I'm just saying, the minorities, like a lot of people out there want to think that the minorities are getting all the money. No, they're not. Their paperwork's going out the window, just like the majorities. Just like, I mean, we're all in this together. We got to understand that. We are all in this together. And until we fix all of it, none of it's going to be fixed. So that's kind of what he's saying, is the minorities that you guys are saying is getting the money, they're not getting any either.
Vulnerable businesses that we're trying to help are being left out, and that minor errors could mean that a business eligible for a very significant amount of money gets nothing, while the next applicant in line gets the full amount. So I just want to ask, can you please explain how SBA is handling applications with minor errors or insufficient documentation? And will rejected applicants ever be told the reason, especially in the event that Congress provides more funding for the program and they may have an opportunity to reapply?
Thank you. I think the challenges with first in, first out programs is just that. And so obviously as businesses were allowed to get back in line and reapply, but that's obviously depending on the level of challenges in their application. I don't have specifics, so we'd have to review specific cases, directly in terms of why individuals were rejected from the program. But I'm happy to put you in touch, your team in touch with my team to make sure that we can work through those specific issues. But SBA, will be developing processes for businesses, if assuming that there's additional funds put in place for businesses to reapply into the future.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to help out, but what I just want to emphasize again, if you can kind of take it back to your team, is about just that feedback. When the businesses don't know what it is that has gone wrong, why it is that they're not being accepted. And, we hear that from that kind of breakdown there in the communication. We hear that also with, the PPP, for instance. I know you addressed this to a point, but, I've also heard from these panicked business owners waiting for PPP loans when they receive a notice that, SBA will remove all loans, not approved a further research status from their origination platform by 5 p.m. on May 17th. That's something that they've received that notice. They get very panicked about it. And, we're told that, before that no applications were purged. I get it. But, when we're looking at this, Congress has approved more than $800 billion for the PPP program, which has funded more than, 11.6 million loans. The program has become a crucial lifeline for small businesses, but what we're trying to figure out is, how is SBA addressing the confusion caused by that notice, and how are we working to resolve these remaining hold codes, complete all pending applications, and utilize the remaining amount before June 30th? So this is just something that I'm continuing to hear as their problem.
Yeah, and we did definitely notice the banks so that they could take action, as all of those hold codes were a minimum over 30 days, some cases over 90 days. And so they needed to take action on those loans. We did not remove them from the system in any way. And so they can continue to work through those issues with the SBA if those were actual pending loans that they intended to take action on. So, I definitely appreciate that we need to have more communication. That is a goal as we continue to look through improvements in the program. And so I will take it back with my team and see how we can improve that transparency as we move forward without
just letting them know, just communicating what they need to do to resolve it. That's really what it comes down to.
Time has expired. Now we recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Donalds.
Thank you, Chairwoman, Ranking Member, for this actually quite lively committee. First of all, Administrator Guzman, I'll tell you, having coached young kids, I always tell them the number one ability is availability. So I want to thank you for making yourself available. It's unfortunate that Secretary Yellen does not know that the best ability is availability, and so she needs to be here to answer these questions. I'll tell you, Administrator, I mean, I get it, why you can't, frankly, keep it 100 with the American people about President Biden's tax policies and other.
You hear what he just said? I understand, Guzman, why you can't keep it 100 with the American tax people. Dude, I like him already. I like Donald. He's from my own state, and I would just want to thank you for that, Donald. But he's even saying right here, Guzman, I understand why you can't keep it 100 with the people. Thank you, Representative Donald. We appreciate you.
Yellen does not know that the best ability is availability, and so she needs to be here to answer these questions. I'll tell you, Administrator, I mean, I get it, why you can't, frankly, keep it 100 with the American people about President Biden's tax policies and other economic policies, because you'd be in trouble with your boss. So I understand why you can't, be 100 about those things. But what most people don't know is that my career was actually as a bank underwriter, as a credit loan underwriter for many years. So I underwrote small business loans. And I'll tell you 100% that increases in the corporate tax rate, increases in the capital gains rate are going to affect small businesses, whether you are a C Corp or a pass-through S Corp. Simply because that's what happens with increased taxes. Either it's going to hurt them directly on their bottom line, or it's going to hurt the people that they do business with, that it's going to impact them as well. So just for the record, as somebody who's actually been a lender that's dealt with SBA from the front lines, I will tell you point blank, increased tax policy is going to hurt small businesses across the United States. That being said, I know that in the last spending bill that was passed in Congress, there was a change to PPP, which expanded the ability for nonprofits, specifically large nonprofits, to access PPP loans. One of the concerns by myself and other members of the committee was that nonprofits like Planned Parenthood and their affiliates will be able to gain access to the PPP program. To this point, has any nonprofit like Planned Parenthood or their affiliates received PPP loans?
It's the SBA's long-standing policy not to comment on specific borrowers, but yes, there have been over 80,000 nonprofits who have accessed this system.
Is there ability for this committee to be able to get an understanding of what nonprofits have gained access? Can you provide that to us?
We have provided specific reports of all of the loans, and so that information is readily available to you if you were to search through the system, yes.
All right, we'll definitely make sure
your team has it.
We'll make sure we definitely look into that. Real quick, I want to piggyback off of something that the ranking member was talking about in the Eidl program. You said that it's really not something that frontline lenders want to do, is get involved in the Eidl program. It's not really in their incentive base to do so. Have you guys actually itemized or estimated the amount of total fraud in the Eidl program to this point?
There have been estimates from the IG, and we are still working through. I mean, as an example.
But real quick, because I got 2 minutes. So what's that number? What's that number? Can you tell us?
As an example, on identity theft, it's less than 1% of actual cases. But we continue to work through all those flagged issues with the IG and.
How much money are we talking about? Give me dollars and cents. I like percentages too, but dollars and cents. How much are we talking about?
Mm-hmm. We don't have final numbers in terms of the total fraud picture yet as we continue to investigate.
Let me answer this question. Do you think it would probably be cheaper for the United States taxpayer to incentivize lending institutions to administer Eidl as opposed to paying out money in fraudulent means?
That calculate, we'd have to work through that together. So I welcome an opportunity.
All right, quick question. I mean, you're the administrator now. Don't you think that's a worthwhile calculation to perform?
Once we get the final calculation of what the actual fraud is on the program, especially knowing that we've implemented new controls going.
Then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on. Donald is hitting the button on the head. Everything he's saying, quick and to the point and precise, and she don't know. I think she knows, but he's calling her out like 100%. He's my favorite one of the night. This is great. It was worth it, man. They saved the best for last. Here, come on, Donald.
Going forward, that were not allowed in previous year. Then of course we can look at that trend.
All right, real quick. Last thing I want to ask you about is also been a point in this committee that under Administrator McMahon, the response time from SBA was actually very, very prompt, even though they were still trying to dig out new information. You're the administrator now, so quick, what changed? Why have we gone from quick response times to very slow or non-existent response times?
I don't know what Administrator Carranza's response time.
I'm no fan of Carranza. Not at all. Carranza was the worst. She was the worst. But we do have to, he's right. Carranza, when it came to get the money out, when they said get the money out, fraud or not, just get the money out, Carranza got the money out. And then Carranza did stupid and became, who knows, she went to this other world. But in the beginning, when it was time for Carranza to get the money out in the front, she got the money out. So why isn't, with all the systems in place, where is the money and why isn't it coming out? Because we're all in the same boat. We're waiting. And that's what Donald is saying here. Donald is saying, why are they waiting so long? You guys are unresponsive to the small businesses right now. Why are they waiting so long? And she can't give us an answer. I'm going to rewind that a little bit so we can rehear that. Good job, Donald.
Don't you think that's a worthwhile calculation to perform?
Once we get the final calculation of what the actual fraud is on the program, especially knowing that we've implemented new controls going forward that were not allowed in previous year, then of course we can look at that trend.
All right, real quick. Last thing I want to ask you about is also been a point in this committee that under Administrator McMahon, the response time from SBA was actually very, very prompt, even though they were still trying to dig out new information. You're the administrator now, so quick, what changed? Why have we gone from quick response times to very slow or non-existent response times?
I don't know what Administrator Carranza's response times were during disaster, but obviously the team is highly impacted in terms of their ability to respond quickly as possible. We have
But Administrator, the pandemic was last year too, and the pandemic is ending this year. So I'm trying to understand what's the difference in response time between last year and this year.
My understanding is that the comparison between the previous administration, Administrator Carranza, who was in position during COVID, versus my time here, is that we've been very transparent. We've tried to respond as quickly as possible, and by expediting these briefings, live briefings, as well as reports that we've been sharing with you, that has, in addition, provided you with more information than in the previous time.
All right, I yield back.
Fired.
So she said the reason why it's slower is because we are more transparent and we are providing more information than the previous administration did. I would like to know from anybody out there, and I would like you to all to chime in on this, what information have they given us? Where are they transparent at? I don't get it. How are we being fed more information than the last administration? Do we need information or do we need money? We need money. I think that was the worst. I don't understand that question. And I think that's where they've kept us in this, is not to be able to understand what is going on. And that was so because we're being more transparent and we're able to do these meetings more. Yet Yellen's not showing up. Mnuchin used to show up. So where is what is she saying? I feel like I could rewind that over and over and still not understand what she's saying. Representative Donald from Florida. We salute you. That was well done. All right, I'll quit talking now and go back to this. It's almost over, guys.
Now we recognize the gentle lady from Minnesota, Ms. Craig.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Velasquez. And I'd like thank you for being here, Administrator Guzman. For the record, I think you are exactly the right person to be testifying as a witness in front of us today about the SBA's COVID relief program, since you are the administrator of the Small Business Administration. So, I want to thank you. and everyone at the SBA. And I'd like to thank those who worked in the previous administration with the Small Business Administration, because it's all of your hard work over the last year, obviously.
Okay, I'm having somebody ask me to replay the response, so I'll replay that for you.
Best ability is availability, and so she needs to be here to answer these questions.
So you asked me for
I'll
it.
tell you,
Here you go.
Administrator, I mean, I get it, why you can't, frankly, keep it 100 with the American people about President Biden's tax policies and other economic policies, because you'd be in trouble with your boss. So I understand why you can't, be 100 about those things. But what most people don't know is that my career was actually as policy is going to hurt small business.
Yes, there have been over 80,000 nonprofits who have accessed this system.
Is there ability for this community to be able to get an understanding of what nonprofits have gained access? Can you provide that to us?
We have provided specific reports of all of the loans, and so that information is readily available to you if you were to search through the system. Yes.
All right, we'll definitely make sure
your team has it.
We'll make sure we definitely look into that. Real quick, I want to piggyback over something that the ranking member was talking about in the Eidl program. You said that it's really not something that frontline lenders want to do, is get involved in the Eidl program. It's not really in their incentive base to do so. Have you guys actually itemized or estimated the amount of total fraud in the Eidl program to this point?
There have been estimates from the IG, and we are still working through. I mean, as an example.
But real quick, because I got 2 minutes. So what's that number? What's that number? Can you tell us?
As an example, on identity theft, it's less than 1% of actual cases. But we continue to work through all those flagged issues with the IG. And
how much money are we talking about? Give me dollars and cents. I like percentages too, but dollars and cents, how much are we talking about?
Mm-hmm. We don't have final numbers in terms of the total fraud picture yet, as we continue to investigate.
Let me answer this question. Do you think it would probably be cheaper for the United States taxpayer to incentivize lending institutions to administer Eidl as opposed to paying out money in fraudulent means?
We'd have to work through that together. So I welcome an opportunity.
All right, quick question. I mean, you're the administrator now. Don't you think that's a worthwhile calculation to perform?
Once we get the final calculation of what the actual fraud is on the program, especially knowing that we've implemented new controls going forward that were not allowed in previous year, then of course we can look at that trend.
All right, real quick. Last thing I want to ask you about is there's also been a point in this committee that under Administrator McMahon, the response time from SBA was actually very, very prompt, even though they were still trying to dig out new information. You're the administrator now, so quick, what changed? Why have we gone from quick response times to very slow or non-existent response times?
I don't know what Administrator Carranza's response times were during disaster, but obviously the team is highly impacted in terms of their ability to respond quickly as possible. We have those.
But Administrator, the pandemic was last year too, and the pandemic is ending this year. So I'm trying to understand what's the difference in response time between last year and this year.
My understanding is that the comparison between the previous administration, Administrator Carranza, who was in position during COVID, versus my time here, is that we've been very transparent. We've tried to respond as quickly as possible, and by expediting these briefings, live briefings, as well as reports that we've been sharing with you, that has, in addition, provided you with more information than in the previous time.
All right, I yield back.
Expired. Now we recognize the gentle lady from Minnesota, Ms. Craig.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Velasquez. And I'd like thank you for being here, Administrator Guzman. For the record, I think you are exactly the right person to be testifying as a witness in front of us today about the SBA's COVID relief program, since you are the administrator of the Small Business Administration. So, I want to thank you and everyone at the SBA. And I'd like to thank those who worked in the previous administration with the Small Business Administration, because it's all of your hard work over the last year, obviously, in implementing the various, mostly bipartisan programs that this committee approved in the last Congress. It was an extraordinary challenge during a public health crisis. And at the end of the day, we're here to make sure that as many of our small businesses as possible can get through this crisis. And of course, we're going to learn as we go in a public health emergency. So shame on anybody here today who would turn this into a partisan exercise. I especially want to commend the administrator on the creation and implementation of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. In fact, I would like to thank my colleagues from across the aisle for those of you who supported that. I've been a proud advocate of this program since the Restaurants Act was introduced in the last Congress, and I was incredibly pleased to see this get across the finish line when it was included in the American Rescue Plan. Just last week, I heard from one of my constituents, the owner of Tawakol Restaurant located in the great city of Burnsville, who told me that they have already received financial assistance from the RRF. I'm pleased to see that these vital funds being dispersed to our hardest hit small businesses are going out so quickly to some. However, there's another side of this. In terms of the RRF applicants, such as Nick's Diner in Cannon Falls, I'm really disappointed to learn that the likelihood of that independent restaurant receiving assistance is incredibly small. As some of my colleagues before me have mentioned, the RRF does not currently have enough money to assist many of its applicants. That's why I'm working on leading a group of my colleagues and pushing House leadership to replenish the program to fulfill current demand, or as many of those independent restaurants who've taken the brunt of this public health crisis. Literally, our government asked them to shut down during a public health crisis. We need to work together to uphold our ongoing commitment and replenish this fund. Administrator Guzman, you noted in your testimony that the RRF program has received more than 362,000 applications with a total of $75 billion in funding requested. At the current funding level, is there a possibility a large number of those applicants could miss out on receiving any of those grant dollars?
Yes, there will be significant demand unmet at the close of this program once awards are finalized.
Administrator, is there any estimate or prediction on how many of those applicants are not going to receive any of those grant dollars at this time?
Not the specific numbers as they work through the specific applications and the dollar amounts for each. Obviously, we had the $9.5 billion in set aside to the smaller entities. But the latest numbers are over $76 billion in applied, and with only $28.6 billion available, there will be a significant number of those 372,000 applicants.
Administrator, do you think that Congress should strongly consider replenishing this program?
The program has been effective at reaching out and to support small businesses, restaurants, food and beverage businesses broadly. There's obviously a large pool of applicants who are interested in this grant funding. And these are the hardest hit industries that are big job creators in our economy. And so providing that support to them is really critical. And whatever Congress moves forward with, we would be more than willing to implement as expediently as possible.
Thank you so much for that answer. And from that, I'm going to assume your answer is yes. Are you open to working with this committee and leadership to explore replenishing the RRF?
We would be happy to collaborate and provide any information and intel that can better inform that decision, yes.
Thank you so much, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Again, Administrator Guzman, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your testimony and your service to our nation's small businesses. I am also grateful for SBA's responsiveness, the increased level of transparency, and receptiveness for information has not gone unnoticed. I commend you for being more forthcoming with this committee. With that said, you have taken over the helm of SBA, as at one of the most critical times in its history, and the road to recovery will be a long and winding one for small businesses. Your testimony has also
now
given
it's a perfect
us
time to click that like and subscribe button, and thank you for watching Speak and See.
Look at the obstacles that small business relief programs face. It is important to remember that no program is perfect, and we must help them operate as effectively as possible. This hearing has made clear that there is much work to be done, and I look forward to partnering with you on all these efforts. I welcome your continued engagement, particularly as we look to reauthorize the SBIR, STTR programs. I would ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit state and supporting materials for the record. Without objection, so ordered, and if there is no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.
And that's it, guys and girls. That was the meeting. If you were all still here from the beginning to the end, you may have gotten the biggest, I would say, what would I call it? The biggest education that you could possibly have on your SBA Eidl loans, PPPs, and your grants. So as far as it goes right now, what's changed is the only thing that's changed in my mind that I saw today was they still don't have a clue. There was, with the Treasury not being there, it's kind of hard to examine the tax brackets of it, and the capital gains, and whether they believe that they should have more PPP or whether they need to appropriate more things. But Guzman could not answer a single question regarding our Eidl grant. They sidestepped everything. When they tried to get a good answer, they couldn't. These are the people that are working for us. That's just it. These are the people that we have working for us. If you don't see a problem with what we just witnessed today, then I don't know what to tell you. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have lawsuits now going underway in the states of Texas and Florida and Pennsylvania. There's one in LA. I have people emailing me left and right saying we have filed a complaint over in Kansas. They're filing everywhere, people. They are filing complaints everywhere over the SBA's inadequacies to deliver money to the businesses. We can say there's discrimination over here, there's discrimination over there. There is discrimination going on in the SBA, yes. And I just want to say that with that discrimination, the minorities are not the ones discriminating against us, the white people. It's not that. They're actually being discriminated against in the meantime. It's kind of like this. If you go into a school, if you're a teacher and you start handing out candy to kids based on what color they are, then you're discriminating. You give a piece of candy to every kid in the class. Well, with the small businesses, we are one big class. We are one big group of people. Now they're trying to pick and choose who they're giving it to, but they're in giving it to who they're trying to give it to, they're skipping the people that they say they're giving it to. So they need to just cut out everything and throw out the money like they're supposed to. I need to, here's what we're going to do. With all of the lawsuits that are going about right now, including I'm talking to an attorney myself here in Florida, and it's getting pretty deep. I can't go into the total detail of it all, but it's getting pretty deep, and a complaint has been filed. That goes into the next step, and then we'll take it from there, and we'll be able to get more information to you when he gets more information to me. I'm not an attorney, but I have an attorney, a good one. So with that being said, I would like to know if you all could put in this comment right here where you're from, just New York State, Florida, Pennsylvania. And after I leave here, you can please comment. If you could please comment as well and leave a comment below. Come back to the video and leave a comment below to leaving us where your state is. That way we may be able to set you up with what's going on in your state. And once these all combine, maybe it will be one big federal lawsuit. We're not sure yet how this is going to play, but from what I see right now is they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue they could not give us an answer. They could not give us an answer to even the Representative Donald. I love Donald from Florida. The lady from Texas was great. The Luke Meyer came in. He did a good job. There were a few good players tonight that gave us information to how secretive they're being. I didn't feel transparency at all. I see Texas and Michigan. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Tony's Coffee House. But I did not feel the transparency that Guzman was trying to provide me with, the comfort to say, okay, you've got our backs. Guzman, you have our backs. I didn't feel like Guzman had our backs at all. I didn't feel like Velasquez had our backs at all. And Nydia Velasquez, Texas is in there, California is in there. Nydia Velasquez as well is a big player in this. Without Nydia Velasquez, we're in trouble because she is the chairman of that meeting. She is the CEO of those meetings, and she is the one that can really bring stuff to the House. She's part of, Nydia Velasquez is a big part that we have our loans not forgiven, but extended for the next year, as far as her and Salazar and Sharice Davids, who we saw today, was in that as well. And Cali, we see California, we see Michigan, we see Texas, we see Florida, more Ken Sciola, and East Properties. We got Rhode Island, funny speak. So, but I did not feel the transparency, and I heard a lot of new information as far as what the senators were saying, as far as the lack of detail on who is getting the money and who is not, because I know personally businessmen and women in minority groups that are saying to me, speak, I'm in the same boat as you are. I know they're hazing us saying, yeah, the minorities are getting it, but we're not. And I have friends. It's all a big, I don't get it, but we need to get to the bottom of it. So here was a deliberate, what we were feeling tonight, what we were seeing tonight is the truth behind it all. They don't have a clue. They're trying to fake it as they go, and we know that. So I am going to let you all know that I appreciate, first of all, I want to thank everybody here for watching. I ask that you like and subscribe, and we are going to be going through more and more of this context, and we went pretty deep. This went pretty deep today, as far as us knowing that they don't know as much as they want us to think they know. But when they come onto this channel and they see everybody here watching them in action, it's a very pitiful sight that us small businesses have to see what's going on right now in this world. It's pitiful. It was shameful. Schumer, where's my idol? Schumer, take S513 to the floor right now. We are sick and tired of this SBA. Guzman, you too. Get out there. Rosen, you too. And Nydia Velasquez, you need to step aside. You need to get away. Cardin, where are you at? We need to call out these congressmen who were not here. Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury, was not even there today. This administration, I am not just here to bash the Biden administration. I'm here to bash whatever administration is behind what we're seeing in our lives. Who's in charge of this? It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Guys, like, subscribe. I am going to be heading out right now, and I've got more legal work to do as well, as far as all of this is going. I want to thank everybody for watching. It has been very shameful. Vera Robinson, thank you. S. Oliver, Liberty Rights, Tony's Coffee House, Raquel, Talk to Rock. Hang in there. Hang in there, lady. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. John Stritzinger, thank you. Everybody, I want to say thank you all for watching. Very disappointing in our Congress and in our Senate. And I don't know. If I was Congress in the Senate, you know what I would do right now? You know what I would do personally? I would go to the floor tomorrow with S513 and say, okay, at least get them their grants until we figure this out. At least get those small businesses their grants. The $10,000 we promised them, to let them know that we're somewhat honest, to somewhat let them know we somewhat know what they're going through, to let them know, hey, it's born, to let It's Born know that, hey, it's born. Guess what? There is a hero out there, and we are going to do the right thing. When are they going to do the right thing? That's all we're asking for here. Do what's right. They're acting like they don't know the small businesses. Do they know us? Do they? I don't know. They don't know me. The only one representing me tonight, it felt like were a few of the senators out there. They represented me, but will they actually get things done? Donald had great questions. God bless him. Florida, he's from my home state. But will he get anything done? Other than just ask them questions or send them questions that he says right now, I'm not getting any response from you, Guzman. Everybody came out and said, Guzman, we're not getting a response from you. Hey, Guzman, how many people are watching right now? Do I have 100 people watching us right now? Do we have 100? Yeah, we have 112. Hey, Guzman, 112 of us right here at this channel are not getting a response right now. We're not getting a response. Please respond to us. We need this help before the pandemic is over, and then we're just left to fend for ourselves. I know what they're waiting for. They're waiting for the pandemic to be over. Everybody's vaccinated. Everything's okay now. No, we have suffered. You all have suffered during this. It was not the pandemic that shut you down. It wasn't the pandemic that ruined your business. It was the litigation. It was the implemented bills that said, hey, you got to close your doors. It was the Close Your Doors Acts. And the government issued close your doors and go home to your business. That's what shut you down, not the pandemic. We could have lived through it. We could have went through COVID without the litigation that took place telling us we got to shut down. So we just need help to get back where we were at. We were all jamming, and we just need to say right now, Marlena says, bottom line, they are all not hurting or not concerned that this country was built on small businesses get the rich richer. That's right, Marlene. This is a Get the Rich Richer program. It's kind of nicking out the middle class. Middle class, African Americans, black people, white people, Spanish. It don't matter what color you are. The middle class in general are being nixed out of the bill. And some people are calling it a great reset. Yeah, I guess you could say it kind of is like a reset. Like, boom, okay, let's see some new players coming up. I don't like it. I think everybody in the class should get a candy bar. Everybody in class should get a candy bar. And I know, speaking of, I have kids. I don't want a teacher going into a classroom and skipping my kids and giving all the other kids candy bars and skipping my kid because he's white, or skipping the kid next to him because he's black. If a teacher goes and does that with my kid sitting there, I want my kid to take off his candy bar and say, here, you should get half of this. And tell that teacher the teacher's wrong for what they're doing, because any discrimination is discrimination. And any kind of they're ignoring you, any kind of ignoring you is discrimination. If they're ignoring us right now, that's discrimination. And we're not going to take it. We are going to keep it real with the SBA. I know I don't get as many subs as the other guys and this and that because I keep it a little more real and I get a little more political with this. But we have to get into the political side of this, people, if we want to get things accomplished. We're not here to listen for the next update and the next breaking story. We're here to make the next update and the next breaking story, because we all got together in unity and made something special happen. We created a movement that created a response and made them get on the ball and give us our $10,000 grants. That's what this is about right now. They need to get on the ball and give us each our $10,000 grants. I want my 10K that they promised us in the CARES Act. When they say close your doors, I got 10,000 for you. I said, okay, that'll help. So I'm closing my doors. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to be a responsible business owner, and they're going to help me. So I shut the doors, didn't go outside, kept the kids safe. Everybody in the world was safe from the pandemic. It wouldn't go nowhere. But you know what? They did not give us our 10K. And our businesses lost lots of money. Do I have to show? I don't want to have to show any loss for it, because the loss was that I shut my business. I worked 10 times harder inside. I worked 10 times more hours, and the $10,000 grant should have been given to us despite where I lived, despite what I lost. When you said you were going to when you promised it to us, you were supposed to give it to us. That was the intent, and that was the promise that Rosen says herself. Hey, she said last time she was in the Senate, she said to herself, we got to keep our promise that we made them in the CARES Act. She said herself that it was a promise to you. And now the rest of them are kind of like, we're in. They voted for us. We're in. We don't need to respond to them now. Let's ignore them and see how far that gets us. It's not going to get you that far because lawsuits are coming, and we don't want to have to take that. We don't want to have to take that route, but we're starting to. So let's not have to go there. And I want to thank you all once again for watching this. I want to just say, hang in there as a group. We all know each other here. A lot of us know each other here. We recognize the names. And thanks for watching. Y'all have a blessed night. And somebody say, hey, I want my 10K. I want my 10K. Thanks again, It's Born. Aristotle Arguelles. I don't know if I said that right. Aristotle Arguelles. Thank you for watching. And once again, guys, you all have a blessed night. Bye-bye. Yeah. It's our choice. We say, hey, we want a 10K. Yeah, it's getting to the point where we've had enough. And you know what? We're at the point where we're saying no Eidl, grant or loan, no Eidl, no peace. 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 No Eidl. No Eidl, no peace. No Eidl, no peace. No Eidl, no peace. No Eidl. Stop the discrimination. Where do you live? What do you look like? What do you think? What are you gonna need the money for? You need to sell you in the South. No peace. Stop the discrimination. Promised us a grant. Now there doesn't seem to be anyone around. They promised us 10K, but now the money is nowhere to be found.
Roughly $80 billion in CARES Act.
We're gonna get our 10K. Eidl. We're gonna get our 10K. Eidl. Yeah, I think so. We're gonna get our Eidl. We're calling, we're blogging, we're sizing them up. Cause they promised tall, delivered small, and now we want our money. Hanging with Speak and See, and we're looking for some action. Cause with the SBA we can't get no satisfaction. The grant was for 10K, and it was signed and it was stated on CARES Act S4227. Now Congress is constipated. They constipated. Dig if you will, CARES Act. Promise you something you don't get. Then they want you to forget about it. This is what it sounds like. Ridiculous. Push it. Push it good. Push it. We want a 10K.
One bad day in the month of March, I was wearing a suit, my collars were starched, customers missing, folks were hissing. I was feeling down, bills are piling up, till one day I heard the old tuba calling. New program, it was a launching, promised cash really fast. Still feeling down, bills are piling up.
It was a new Alaska, digital gold, a mystical 10K, Eidl. Schumer, where's my idol? It's been 1 year and many days ago.
Here comes Carranza, Miss SBA, the deed book stacking, chance to get away. Hiding behind her team and the whole darn press. Went before Congress and kicked our ass. Left some marks, left some screens. We all lost out on a 3-day dream.
Schumer, remember those letters? It's been 1 year and many days ago.
Some drove the trucks, took to their tan. Some used their apps, suing full blast. But all of the letters stacked on her desk didn't bother Carranza, no heart in her chest. So out of the roost, folks came a-calling. Rosens, Cardins, Craigs, and Miss Velasquez. Telling Miss Carranza why you holding up the deeds. Why these good folks yapping up to me. Carranza gave out a big old sigh. Fire flew out of her eyes.
We had no money, it was too much. We had no way to pay $10,000.
So she said it got her way. So I still sing to this day. It's been 1 year and many days ago.
Carranza got away with her shady deal. The SBA kept us dreaming. More meetings with the suits day by day. The media started to get their way. Carranza cooked up a terrible scheme.
Schumer, we're still waiting. We've called you 1,000,000 times ago.
Treasury Secretary quickly agreed, and a wink and a nod from the sitting chair. Carranza filled Congress full of hot air.
We'll call them frauds. They took too much. Then we won't have to pay $10,000.
And they flipped and bought it. People were in a riot. It was 1 year and many days ago.
How would it end? What would they do? Claimants believed this motley crew. While Carranza slept, the numbers grew. Corporate chains, more claims, no swimming out of this stew. So Rosen and Cardin put out a paper. It said, Miss Carranza, we've heard enough. It's time to give them good folks their $10,000.
That was 1 year and many days ago.
It's too easy. Can't you see? That 10K was now for someone else, not me. And even then, it could be 4 months later, calling up questions of spawn never delivered.
So we are back here and we are pleading, Mr. Schumer, please bring S513 up tonight.
You
like us. Now give us some money right now. Let the idol hit the floor. Let the idol hit the floor. Let the idol hit the floor.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where we've had enough. And you know what? We're at the point where we're saying no idle, grant or loan, no idle, no peace. 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 No idle. No idle, no peace. No idle, no peace. No idle, no peace. No idle. Stop the discrimination. Where do you live? What do you look like? What do you think? What are you gonna need the money for? You imbecile, you imbecile, you imbecile. No peace. Stop the discrimination. I woke up early one morning and I saw the CARES Act pass. They promised me a 10K grant that I filed for real fast. I waited about 4 months for it and wondered what went wrong. I lost all my employees and my business was all gone. They an idol, that grant. They you an idol. K grant. So we made a nice petition and got everyone to sign. We took it to the Senate and the White House right on time. We demanded all our money and here's what they had to say. We're sorry, yes we screwed up. Now give them their 10K. They the idol, that grant. The idol, 10K grant. That grant. That grant. That idol. Somebody give it to me. Somebody give it to me. Somebody. Yeah. Somebody say, hey, we want a 10K. Yeah. Hey, we want a 10K. Yeah. Hey, we want a 10K. Yeah. Hey, we want a 10K. Give it to me. Me and my friends, we like to play this. Now it's the perfect time to click that like and subscribe button, and thank you for watching Speak and See. It's a shame. All fine time to chat and go live and get with the House and Senate on the phone and online. We even tweet the press when we feel like we're stuck on Bill S4227. They'll say you're out of luck, but I think that it's time that they hear our voice and then we say it louder because it's our choice. We say, hey, we want a 10K. We got it. We got it. Over 50,000 phone calls, even more emails. Speak and See subscriber shows us how to prevail. Come on. They never stopped or doubted, even went to DC. Said speak, go to the White House and the Capitol, please. We got kicked off the doorstep of the senator, but it only fueled the fire, made us fight even more. Yeah. Now 8 months later, closing in on holiday, we can say with confidence we got our 10K. We singing, hey.